welcome back to the Unpatched Gaming Podcast, where we share games. I'm your host, Tyler.
And this is 2023 Zach.
2023 Zach, yes. And 2023 Tyler is just on the tail end of a cold, which I'm sure you can tell.
It makes him sound husky and beautiful.
Sure. I still got it, just whatever's left right there.
If you got a thing for Tyler's husky voice, leave a comment.
Please. It's good for the self-esteem. We have beer as well. So if you listen to our sort of end-of-year roundup last month, we mentioned that the cast was going to take a bit of a different structure, which it is. But one of those things is now excluded, and that is sort of I believe we mentioned the brewery tour or review situation. You are here to talk or to hear about games, not breweries, as much as we love them. We are still gonna have beer from a particular brewery each episode. So we brought 2 from Pint House this time around.
Pint House Pizza.
Dude, they're so good.
So this is like an Austin staple. If you go to any of the bars, you're going to see Austin Beer Works, 512, and Pint House Pizza.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be your staples. And I got to be honest, this has always been one of my favorites. I think it's an easy contender for top 3 best breweries in Austin.
Have you tried Training Vines?
Yes, it's very good. I preferred Jellyfish. Although, again, my 2 favorite beers from them are not their IPAs. So they're known for their IPAs, specifically Electric Jellyfish. If you go to a bar, you'll be paying $8-9 for a pour of Jellyfish.
Yes.
Not because it's any better than the other beers necessarily, but because everybody wants it. It's the Austin beer to have. It's very good West Coast IPA. It's very piney. A lot of body to it. It's just a really strong IPA. It's a really good shower for anybody who likes that style of beer.
And the reason we chose it for this episode, again, we're not doing you've got some more in that can, by the way. We're not doing that brewery review, but one of their locations is a pirate-themed building.
Yeah, their logo's the Jolly Roger, They got that whole 9 yards.
Didn't work out though, but still gonna have some delicious beer.
And we have some more from them. I brought my personal favorite from their selection, so we'll have that a little bit later. It's gonna be good.
I'm gonna move this so we can have this.
Got it. So like the 4-pack of these tall boys is $20. It's
crazy.
It's insane, but people want it.
You got more in there, bud.
So my 2 favorites actually from Pint House Pizza personally, is
See, it's silly.
I like their magical pills, their Pilsner, not because it's not something I'd want to go for when I want a Pilsner usually. It's a very unique beer. Lots of flavor for a Pilsner. It's not going to be this simple, clean, crisp beer. These guys like to hop stuff, and they hop it hard. But they do a really good job. And then, of course, the one I brought in the growler, the Bearded Seal. It's a dry Irish stout. And
that's good.
No offense to any Irish listeners. I love Beamish. I love Murphy's. I think this beats anything y'all got in Ireland.
It's very
good.
It's
so good. That might be my Texas bias showing. I'll put that back in my pants. But we are here to talk about The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker.
Not yet.
No, what? No.
Listen, I know they are not the same, but you just reminded me of something when you were talking about Ireland. I was talking with someone last night who just went on a vacation to Scotland.
Sure.
And I didn't know this. I'd like to know more about the immigration history, but she said she had more Chinese food in the 2 weeks she was there than she's pretty much ever had, and it was the best Chinese food.
That's incredible.
There's just little hole-in-the-wall Chinese restaurants everywhere. Like you'd see taco trucks here or, little taco shops.
I've heard that's true of Indian food in England as well.
Interesting.
I've heard, but I don't know.
Yeah, I've heard that as well. That's why there were a couple Indian dishes on Emerald Tavern's menu. I asked about that, and they said it's actually very popular cuisine.
Well, I buy typically when I'm making Japanese curries, I'll typically buy an English curry powder. They're very similar because actually Japan got curry way later than it's kind of a naturalized dish after a time. It's like 1800s or something weird like that.
Just an interesting thing I heard last night that I was
Fun
was not
facts
expecting
only
about.
here on the Unpatched Gaming
Fun
Podcast.
facts here.
Facts. Okay, can we talk about Wind Waker?
I suppose we can talk about this wonderful game from our childhood.
Yes. Let's talk about that childhood, actually. When did you play this game?
I played this game probably around 2005. No, actually, I think it was 2000, close to 2007. So the Wii was already out. I didn't have it. I bought a GameCube just with basically, allowance. I remember buying one. I couldn't afford a memory card, but I wasn't going to get a
Those are some of the best memories, man. Ironically.
But I eventually got a huge kit just over the years. I mean, the PS3 was already out, the Xbox 360. I didn't have one. I was still building my GameCube collection. It was pretty big, but I got rid of it all back as a kid. To get a 360, I put all that stuff on eBay. I remember I drew a custom case for Fire Emblem. What is it? Path of Radiance, and the Zelda Collector's Edition. I think has
Master
the
Collection or something.
Yeah, Master Collection. I think that's right. Anyway, I got those both loose, so I drew some dual-sided cover art and had a spine that sort of blended some themes from both games because I just had a spare double disc case. Anyhow, I built a collection. I played it after Twilight Princess because it kind of turned my friends off. I played a lot with my friends, even during the day and stuff. I had a couple homeschool friends. Excuse me. They would come over earlier than my public school friends, and we would just play all day together. They would watch me play. They didn't even like to play the games I was playing very much, but they liked to watch me. So I remember playing through Metroid Prime 1 and 2 with an audience. Played through Prince of Persia with an audience.
Those are great watching games, the Metroid Prime games. My dad watched me play all of them when I was a kid.
Yeah,
he loved those games. Scan that.
They weren't really interested in Wind Waker because of because of the way it was received back then.
We won't go over that. You can find that in any history of Wind Waker.
Yeah,
just the poor reception.
Initially. So I played it.
The things that now have made it a lasting game.
Exactly. So after Twilight Princess, I probably finished Twilight Princess nearly 3 times by the time I finally picked this one up.
So for me, I did play it. I got a GameCube. Let's see. I moved to Austin in 2005, so it was before. It was before then. It's before 2005. I would assume 3 or 4. So I played it around then, and it was one of the later games I got from my GameCube. It was because I got Smash Bros. Melee, Wallace and Gromit Project Zoo. Those were my 2.
You still have that over there, right?
I do still have. Well, no, my mom has it. It's one of her favorite games of all time. She plays it on her Wii. It's the only thing she plays on the Wii.
What?
She loves that game. So yeah, Wallace and Gromit Project Zoo, Super Smash Bros. Melee, and there was one other game as well that I don't remember. But
Luigi's Mansion, Ninja Turtles.
That came later. All that stuff came later. I don't remember the other one, but
the one with the bug.
Maybe.
Zapper? Is
no,
that it?
I played that on PC. But all that to say, I played it before Twilight Princess. I played Twilight Princess on Wii. So I played it before Twilight Princess. It was probably, honestly, my first Zelda game.
Twilight Princess?
No, Wind Waker.
Oh, Wind Waker. I'm sorry.
Wind Waker's probably my first Zelda
Twilight
game.
Princess was my first.
And it got me very stoked for Twilight Princess. I would say Twilight Princess was my favorite Zelda game for a long time. Okay. Just the whole vibe, the aesthetic, everything. Yeah. But I always loved Wind Waker. And as I grew up, Twilight Princess, remained pretty high up there for me. But Wind Waker, I put on a pedestal. The experience I remember having. We'll talk about some of the memories that come up. But that game for me is one of those I'm like, hey, I know I haven't played it since I was 12, but I bet you it's a top 10 game for me. That's I was sure of it.
Did it make it up there?
It's in top 30. It's not top 10.
Yeah.
Not quite top 10.
Yeah, it didn't live up to the hype that I had sort of built up. Now, that is not to say I disliked it.
Not a masterpiece.
Yeah. But
we literally
those
put
memories
it on
were incredible.
Well, I'll talk about this later, but there were moments where I didn't know a game could do that. Like, there were multiple moments like that in this game when I was a kid. You know, as an adult now, obviously I've seen those moments in games multiple times, but this is a really pivotal game, and I would argue peak Zelda still. Absolutely peak Zelda. I'd put it up there right alongside anything else. I would probably call it my second favorite Zelda game after Breath of the Wild.
After Breath of the Wild. I would need to still play Twilight Princess
this is without
one more
my
time.
adult Twilight Princess replay.
Yeah.
But Majora's Mask, I would make the argument Majora's Mask is just as strong as Wind Waker, whereas before I would say Wind Waker is much stronger. I would make the argument Majora's Mask is a comparable Zelda experience.
Even though I didn't finish it, I didn't get around to finishing it, unfortunately. I did get almost to the end of Majora's Mask, and I can't believe I put that off for so long. I do think very highly of that game, even though I've not been able to experience the whole thing, and I've only played the 3DS remake.
It also cuts much
damn
deeper.
Good game.
Like it's just doing so much with its world and environments that in such subtle ways, and it's just a joy.
Just that realization that whatever you don't do on that final run, like you don't think about it as a game. Like, oh, I'm going to be served as the player. While playing
There's a lot going on there, and the dungeon design is great. So I would put them on par. Those are the two best 3D Zelda games pre Breath of the Wild.
I still want to get an adult playthrough of Twilight Princess.
Me too,
because
that was my favorite as a kid, dude.
I still have such fond memories of the
water
temple, dude.
Yeah, of the water temple, I think was my second favorite. Temple of Time was probably my favorite.
That
when I was
one's
a kid.
great. When you get the two
it's
hook
great.
shots.
It's great. It's a great game.
You fight that dragon at the top of the tower.
Yep.
It's cool.
Don't even talk to me, dude. I freaking know it. Oh, and the desert temple, I like the arena a lot too. That was cool. Or the ice temple was great too with the giant wrecking ball. So much is good in that game. I
do wonder if it'll be after we play it again. This is so unique.
What I think will hold it back is the non-dungeon pieces, which is the inverse of this game.
Okay.
Because I remember the dungeons being like Twilight Princess's best deal, whereas the overworld stuff was pretty meh, if I recall. But I don't know. We'll play it. I'd love to play it again. It's definitely on the list. Maybe we'll make it our start of 2024 game. Just keep the Zelda tradition going.
Maybe.
We'll just, keep playing until Ocarina of Time is left and then just stop the tradition.
Yeah.
So, yeah, if you are new to the cast, please know that we don't hate you, but we hate your favorite game. We hate Ocarina of Time.
Yes.
With a burning passion.
Don't get it. I don't see it.
Yep, and we'll talk about that a little bit. So that's the broad strokes of kind of what we felt about the game. Would you still consider this game, an absolute masterpiece, though? Like one of the best things.
I mean, it's also
Zelda
in
has
my top 30. But my personal opinions aside, I don't think so. I don't think I would say I wouldn't put it up there at masterpiece status.
I would, for sure.
There is something very special about it that you're not really going to get elsewhere.
That's why I would put it there.
All right. Okay.
But I get what you're saying. It does have... There were some moments where I felt the lull. And it wasn't the sailing parts. It wasn't...
Yeah. Let's talk about the sailing a minute. I noticed this really early on that... we talk about pacing a lot on this podcast. That's super important to us in any game. When you're thrown into a bunch of action and then Uncharted 4, that is peak pacing.
Yeah.
That's one of the best paced stories I've ever
It's so good.
played, just consumed. It's perfect. Everything about it. We talked about that.
It's measured so precisely.
Yes.
Every moment.
Every single moment. But if that balance is off, if that very precise balance is off, you're going to start feeling the lulls like you talked about, or rather have alluded to. But I was thinking about the sailing. Why am I not... I'm not super engaged because there's not really much to engage with. Even the stuff they try to throw out there, like the little barrels that bob up and you can jump over them to get coins. Some of the enemies you can fight. Yeah, they try to engage you with the sailing, but it's not particularly engaging. However, I wasn't bored either.
Yeah.
And it's slow. I didn't even get the fast sail in my playthrough. I didn't even bother.
I got it because I wanted to. I got it, but late. I got it pretty late, but I was like, okay, time to finish the game. Like, let's go.
Okay.
Because we had other things to play.
Yeah.
So. But it was fun. It was convenient.
It is not a practice of patience. It doesn't test your patience, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But there is something that
it's not something I would disparage you for disliking either. Like,
it's
I get
just
it.
Peaceful though.
I get it if you don't like it. I get it if you think that's a negative of the game. But I'm with you. The slow sailing, quote unquote.
It's just a good time.
And intentionally charting your wind direction, it makes you pull out the map, makes you think about where you're going. And it's sure you do have to pull the Wind Waker out, but what is that? 6 seconds to choose the wind direction.
Yeah, I thought I would disagree with you because you got a pretty big head start on it. I forget what I was playing or what I was doing, but you had a big head start, and that's one of the first things we started talking about early on was the speed of the sailing and the sort of degree to which you need to be deliberate with the directions you're going. And I have a tendency to roll my eyes at you because you have a tendency to say things like that maybe where it's not always appropriate. Like you're just it seems like sometimes you give the benefit of the doubt too easily.
I'm a benefit of the doubt giver, but I
thought that was going to be the case here.
Yeah.
It was not. Because getting the map... See, I knew it was a fine balance here with the sailing.
Sure.
Everything I just said about it being slow, not super engaging, but not boring. Very fine thread that they are treading on here. Anything slower would have just been a total slog.
Yeah.
So just I'm trying to fully form that. Like, I agree with you that the being deliberate with the wind directions adds to the experience because you've got this map of what, a 6x6 grid, 6x8 or something. It's something like that, right?
Is it? I think it's like 8x6.
Yeah.
6x8. You're right.
Okay, 6x8. Sure, let's say
Sounds
that.
Right. Maybe it's 8x8.
So you can. There's an island in every square of this map, hiding a bunch of different secrets. A bunch of them you need. A bunch of them are
Not
just
every
supplementary.
Most squares.
There were only
2, I think, without the island.
Was there 2?
Yeah, the Kraken.
Okay. The Kraken just showed up for me in a square, just with an island.
I think it's a set. There's the Crescent Moon one, and there's 2 other squares. I think where it's set that the Kraken shows up.
Okay, so there is
sure feels
a
like
square with no island on it.
I believe so.
Okay. Let's say at max there's 2 squares with nothing on it in this 6x8 grid. To fill it out, you'd have to pull out the Wind Waker and go north, and then you find that island, pull out the Wind Waker and go east. But if you need to get to the other side of the map, or just you're on the north corner, you need to get to the south corner, a south corner, you can sort of time it. Like, I want to explore these ones, just go back and forth.
You plan out
like
where you want to look,
and then maybe I need to get. So now I'm in the bottom left corner of the map. I need to get to the right middle segment of the map. I can set my the wind to northeast, but then it's going to be a little slower, but I can hit this sort of like diagonal motion all the way to where I need to be, but I've explored this section of the map now.
Do you know what I think is a very deliberate and strong choice is not making it wrap around? The map doesn't wrap around.
Oh, it doesn't?
Nope. Yeah, if you try to go out too far, he'll tell you, "Hey, there's nothing out there. We need to turn back."
Oh, I didn't even try. I thought it did though.
It at least east and west.
I thought it was
does
the
that.
whole world. I thought that was the whole world.
And by doing that,
Okay,
it makes it feel so much bigger. Like it makes it feel like this is just a small patch.
I
of the
remember
whole
that
world.
now. I remember as a kid doing that, and the way it's worded
Yes.
is like, oh, what is
Like there could
going on?
what is all? Yeah, it's really good.
I remember that now. Excuse me. Interesting. Yeah,
it's
another
so good.
very deliberate choice, a very well-timed choice is when you can't, and all of the supplementary stuff is just totally up to your discretion when you want to find it, when you can get fast travel. I'm really happy that that's in the last third of the game.
Yeah.
And then I didn't even get it until the last 2 dungeons, I think. I didn't get that
When
or the
you
fast
need
hill
it.
for a while. Yeah. It's a really fine balance here with
Yeah. They do a good job.
how slow the sailing is, how slow it is.
It just
It's
works.
interesting. It's peaceful
works.
and it just works.
It just works.
It's very
Yeah,
deliberate.
traversal in games is something Nintendo's primary IPs have typically done a great job with. It's often very fun to move in a Nintendo game, and that's good. I mean, Kojima built a whole game about just moving from one place to another. Like there is so much that we haven't explored with movement in video games that I'm just excited to see what developers are able to do. I want to talk about the incredibly strong opening of this game.
Okay.
This game, I would argue, of any of the Zelda games, including Breath of the Wild, just is immediately firing on all cylinders. Some of the best game design happening here. The pacing, the introduction of mechanics, the build up of the primary motivation of what's happening here. So, let's start at the very beginning. We start with the Legend of Zelda storybook page, drawn in this like tribal looking. It's hard to describe, but if you see, you know it if you've seen it. And wow,
It's a very similar style to what they did in Breath of the Wild.
yes, very similar, and these games are very similar. But it's this really thick lines, beautifully done drawings, and this is the legend of Zelda. Like you can see, I've been talking about myth a lot lately. And fantasy and those kinds of things. And this game, better than any of the other Zelda games, really nails what it means to be a myth. It's vague details of what like they're really vague on the details of this. There's great loss and lasting mystery to the story of old. The great dark demon king and the pleas of the people for the goddess, the drowning of the whole world. All these great huge images that leave so much for the imagination. But all of these story beats still hold true for the people telling them. I phrased it, it's boots for a young boy to grow into.
Dude, Zach, the majority of my time playing this game, it was like every 10 minutes, I feel. It's like, can't wait to share this with a kid.
Dude, I know!
I cannot wait, dude.
Like when
The memories we had with this game, we've only played it a couple times, and we haven't played it in over a decade. Well
they
over a decade.
They stuck.
It's gonna
so
be great.
long.
Just like, and us as parents, we're gonna be so different. We will invite the kid to lock themselves in a room for a weekend.
Yeah, just let this happen.
Just go beat Zelda this weekend. It's okay, bud. You don't have to have friends. It's all right.
Yeah, I don't like friends anyway. But it's like when she hands her son her grandson the tunic, like it's not just this is tradition. It's what we do. Like it's tradition because we have hope that the world can be healed, and we hope that you might help bring that healing, right? For every boy that comes of age, not just because you're Link, right? For every boy, there's that hope that you would bring healing to the world from the heart of the stories they keep telling and passing down from generation to generation. That's what a legend is. Like when you get the sword, this blade is infused with the desire to become strong and righteous.
I
didn't
didn't catch
the
that.
sword
I didn't read
itself
it.
has weight to it. And it's great. I'm going to bring it up a little later, but right here basically, but the objects of the game are vessels for your experience to give gravity to at the weight a legend can bring. It's just, this game does legends so right.
Speaking of grandma, do you ever go back and visit grandma?
Yeah, it's really sad.
Oh, when she's asleep on the chair and she's like, no, don't leave grandma. Please don't leave me alone. Oh, it's so sad, dude.
Revisiting the island's such a good
It got me
touch,
thinking
too.
about the relationship between young people and old people. And there's a weird middle ground there where there isn't much of a needed relationship. Sometime, I couldn't tell you exactly when. Probably sometime around the age we are now.
Probably.
A little older. But
At least in Western culture.
there, certainly in Western culture. There's like, let's say the 30s and 50s, 30s to 50s, that 20 years. You don't really need each other. You don't really need younger people. You don't really need older people. But older than that and younger than that, you need each other.
Wow.
And you need each other as that gap gets further. The need sort of is inversed. Like, the grandma needs the two children. Probably more, obviously more, than the two children need her.
Sure.
As a caretaker.
That's
like,
good.
They can sort of take care of themselves.
That's good.
Yeah, it's just got me thinking about that
I'm
relationship.
gonna
Western
have to
culture is
think about that.
really bad about
We've
that.
messed it up pretty bad.
Messed it up a lot.
I have, man, I'm going to think about that for a while now. I have here, when you scale the mountain, another small detail, lots of little things in this game. Lots of little touches that are great. As you scale the mountain on your hometown, right? So you've explored your little hometown. It's pretty small by Zelda standards, especially today,
Mm-hmm.
And you
Even
explored-
then, I think all the other towns were bigger.
Yeah, especially like Clocktown,
Yeah.
Like that's
A lot going on.
a lot going on there. But you have this little town, and there's this big mountain, big quote unquote. This is a mountain, and you can get up, and when you finally get the sword, you can scale it. And then you have the town music playing. It's very dun 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 dun. It's very like chipper and fun.
Mm-hmm.
But as you scale the mountain, it cuts out, and it's just the wind.
Yeah. Yes, that's very nice.
Like I have stepped into a place that is new. I'm exploring, and the scale the mountain brings, you look at as far as your eye can see, it's just sea, open sea, and I stood there for a little bit, because when the title screen comes up and the really like the main theme starts playing, I just sat there and listened for a while.
Yeah, of course.
And I just sat there again when the music cuts out. I just sat there and on the top of that mountain and waited and looked for a little bit. Like, they build that sense of adventure better than any other Zelda game, I think.
Yeah. Better than most games in general.
Yes. But the crown jewel of the opening of this game is the Forsaken Fortress. The Forsaken Fortress is probably second or third on my most memorable things from this game.
A kid or now?
As a kid.
Yes.
Like,
okay,
it just
I agree.
has stuck with
I agree
me.
with that.
It has stuck with me for so long. And it's because...
Dude, it took me 3 tries. Like, I put the game down and came back to it months later.
Yeah.
3 times as a kid.
Yeah.
For some reason, I couldn't
stuck
do it.
because it wasn't Zelda, which I didn't know what Zelda was, but it wasn't find the item, complete the puzzles. Like, you lose your sword and you have to think on your feet a little bit, and you're swinging above the enemies, sneaking away from them. Dude, the pigs finding you music, it's really jarring and scary.
And their lips just flopping
just wildly. It's so evocative, and because you're without your sword, you get to kind of have a couple moments of empowerment and thinking a little bit outside the box, figuring out the kind of basic systems this game has in place for picking up sticks and all those little things. But what it's facilitating is this genuine sense of menace. It builds menace really well. Like, this is genuinely out of your depth. And even when you get your sword, you're out of your depth. You know, even when you finally get your sword and beat the enemy, like, you show up against Ganon, and he's like, it just brushes you away, you know? And, oh, dude, a great power, the red King of Red Lion says, a great power you can only wield after much toil and hardship. Like the power itself isn't what you need. It's to grow as a person so that you can fuel that power yourself, you know?
Yeah.
It's just good storytelling. I love it so
King
much.
of Red Lions is so cool.
Oh, he's awesome. I love it the first time he turns his head. Hey! It's like, what? Like,
oh yeah, he's like freeze frame.
dude, Link
surprise.
It's very funny. Like, this game is very funny. I love
yes,
Tetra. Tetra's like little snide remarks. She's a great.
Her little winks.
She's definitely
Or
my
not
favorite
little.
Zelda.
Very big.
Very big winks. She's probably my favorite iteration of Zelda.
Okay.
I would probably say I really like her. Skyward Sword would probably be most people's answer. I found her so dull in that game.
I didn't play Skyward Sword.
But Skyward Sword, I have a deep respect for. I gained a very deep respect for the game. If that game was like 10 hours shorter, it would be a contender for probably my favorite Zelda.
How is it with the controls, the controller rather than the motion control?
It is better with the Wiimote, but by no means difficult or unwieldy with the Switch Joy-Con.
Well, I don't mean the Joy-Con. I mean the controller, like using a controller instead of motion.
I did not play it with the.
Oh, you played
controller.
motion.
I played motion the whole way.
Cool.
You have to do resets a few times. The only time that I like aimed was the like just did controller aim was for some of the like what are they called? Like aiming shooting games. You'd think it'd be easier with the Joy-Con, but it's just not. I had trouble with that. But everything else, like the sword play and everything, the bosses, they all went well.
Okay.
So actually, with this, the only I was thinking about this the other day. The only 3D Zelda game that I have never completed is Ocarina. I've played all the rest to completion.
You haven't, dude. I finished Ocarina. I've played it 2.5 times. I don't know why.
Yeah, that's weird.
I really don't like it.
I've gotten through Gerudo Village.
Okay.
That's where I stopped. So I haven't done the Dark Temple. I haven't done there's another Adult Link Temple I haven't done.
I don't remember.
Yeah, me either. Anyway, all that to say, the fortress is a great build-up for Ganon. This is by far the most memorable Ganondorf in the series. Tied probably, if you could, I could entertain an argument for Twilight Princess.
Yes.
Even though the problem is he's so shoehorned, it feels like sometimes that it kind of takes away from how great he is in that game. So I would definitely give it to this one.
I forget.
And just a guy who's willing to just punch kids in the face.
Yeah.
Like, he's just...
yeah.
without...
Now, I will say, I mean, obviously it's a kid's game. The aesthetic is very childish. The big reveal when you go back to Forsaken Fortress and you get up to his office and you see him there. It was a bit of a letdown. The build-up is way better than the payoff.
That's fair. I think the build-up makes the payoff worthwhile, but like the real payoff,
just a little less brooding than I was
is when
expecting.
he's sitting over the Zelda's bed.
Yeah, of course. Stuff is so good.
That's the real payoff.
Awesome.
In fact, I know why they didn't wait till then. They wanted him to have more of a presence, and I agree with that decision. But man, if that could have been his reveal. Oh man, he's great. Dude, by the time you're on that tower, I have it here. Just fighting the King of Evil as the world literally drowns around you.
It's just amazing.
It's
dude.
epic.
It's a good game.
It's more epic than
all right.
anything.
It's
so
good.
good. Like it's I have here, it's just the beauty of a drowned world. Like, what a cool concept for a world. It's just a drowned world.
Oh, I love the black and white until you pull the sword out.
Oh, dude.
There's so many
The first time
good
you
choices
visit
in this
Hyrule
game.
is so good. I want to talk a little bit about the seeds of Breath of the Wild. So I'm going to talk about Ocarina and Breath of the Wild here. Zelda games are always, I find you get the most out of conversation with them when you're talking about them in the context of other Zelda games. I think it helps a lot. And when I was playing Breath of the Wild for the first time back in 2017 on the Wii U, I played it on Wii U.
Yes, did I?
I felt like I was playing Like I remember Wind Waker at times, and playing this game, I intentionally was looking. It's like, are there Breath of the Wild things? Yes. In fact, things that don't show up in Twilight Princess, don't show up in Skyward Sword. I played Skyward Sword very recently. I can speak to this.
You
This
played
game
the
is doing
remaster,
things,
right?
Yes. This game is doing things the other games didn't do that do show up in Breath of the Wild. I think this is the seeds of Breath of the Wild. In fact, the guy who directed Breath of the Wild is the guy who did Phantom Hourglass and Spirit Tracks. The director. And so he definitely...
One day I'll play Spirit Tracks.
Me
I did
too.
play Phantom Hourglass
Nick
as a kid.
swears by those games. Specifically Spirit
I
Tracks.
remember loving Phantom Hourglass.
Yeah. Nick swears by him. I'd love to play him. So here's the first thing. All the items have multiple uses.
Yeah.
And almost all of them, except for the last 2 dungeon items, remain relevant through the whole experience. They are used in exploration on the non-dungeon islands. They are used in combat. So the best example, the grapple hook. So grapple hook obviously is used for traversal. It can be used to stun enemies in combat.
Mm-hmm.
It can be used to retrieve items. It can be used to guarantee the retrieval of an item from an enemy in combat.
Mm-hmm.
So, you can yank that,
steal
that
the
belt
necklace
or
off
the
of the
necklace
belt,
or
yeah.
whatever. You can usually guarantee the item in combat. And you also have this, and you use it on the boat. It becomes your thing on the boat. So that one thing is being used that many different ways. And I pretty much always had it equipped. I had the Deku Leaf equipped a lot.
Yeah.
I had the bombs are really useful. In fact, I have it a little bit later here, but the Tower of the Gods, the 3rd dungeon, you are required to use, and not just like a simple, here's your little thing, like to constantly use 5 items throughout the whole dungeon.
After that, though, you're right. That up to that point, you're using everything all the time.
Yeah.
After that, the inclusion of the items, because there are quite a few, the inclusion becomes really just
cumbersome.
like it's shoehorned in there. You could have done anything else. Just had at some point, all of the traversal should just be an arrow switch.
Sure. So my
Like,
biggest
there's no reason
criticism-
in the dungeon. The only use for the boots, I think it's one
Yeah,
of the
boots,
last
yep.
dungeon, that the boots are not a big part of. They're not the main thing there. You just need to put them on to get through 2 doors.
Yeah, and
Let's
it's
just do something else at that
the
point.
last 2 dungeons, and honestly, they're the ones spoken of most highly, it seems, when I was doing a little research, like looking through top 10 lists and favorite dungeons. Those last 2 are the ones people speak the most highly of, and I thought they were pretty weak compared to Tower of the Gods. I think Tower of the Gods was the best dungeon.
Yeah,
for
I wished
sure.
I liked playing Tower of the Gods a lot, but the aesthetic of a dungeon helps a lot for me,
That's fair.
and it's a very boring thing to look at. Tower
That's
of
fair.
the Gods.
I get
think.
that. I get that.
Like going through a volcano, going through a giant dying ancient tree.
Yes,
these things are
I'll give
cool.
you that.
These
I'll
things
give you
are
that.
cool.
I'll give you that.
But they, in other Zelda games, they're very good at that. Like the
Oh, man.
Temple of Time and
Every Majora's Mask
uh,
aesthetic is
yeah.
awesome. Every single one.
yeah,
Especially the last one. Oh, I love that temple.
yeah. It was just I was getting tired of being there. Playing it was not bad, but it was just it's a little bland to look at.
That's fair.
But the last 2 dungeons I did have fun with. Oh, okay, so there's the Earth dungeon. What's the Earth dungeon? Which one's that?
Earth Temple. That's the one where you have the bird girl
Yeah.
and the mirror shield. You get the mirror
I
shield.
did like that one quite a bit.
That's most people's favorite, it seems. I thought it was good. I hated the boss.
And the boss
The
was
ghost guy.
oh, worst boss in the game.
Yeah, in fact, he's going to be talked about a little bit later.
I was gonna make that suggestion. He's
Terrible.
it's not that he's difficult or obtuse.
No.
Nothing is bad.
In fact, he's very easy.
Yeah, I don't think he's a particularly bad boss. I think he is probably the worst Zelda boss. Which is not to say that there are bosses that play worse than this one. There aren't bosses that play worse. This is just antithetical to what bosses are doing in Zelda games.
Yeah,
he's stupid. He's very dumb.
Very dumb. Glad we agree on that. So I agree with you. I think that it definitely becomes more Metroid-y, like at the end, where this item is now used to make me progress through this thing. It's not a thing that interacts in the environment or makes you think on your toes or any of that stuff, which the Deku Leaf, best edition. Best
Deku Leaf
edition
is
might be my favorite
one of
Zelda
the
item.
best items in this game, at least.
It might be my favorite Zelda item, period.
One that so the sort of stand-in for the Deku Leaf in Minish Cap is a jar that you just hold out and charge wind from. It's a little wind cannon, but it just looks like the large white and blue jars from here. It just looks like a normal jar, but its handles spin around and spit wind out. But you drive little boats or rafts and then spin fans with it and just knock enemies off of ledges. You just kill.
Love it.
It doesn't do damage, but you just push enemies back and they fall off and that's it. You win.
I love it.
It's a good item.
I want to play that game
play
very
that game,
badly. Some of these items... Oh, go ahead.
Link's talking companions are just... There needs to be more of them, like the hat and the boat. I don't mean fairies, but just some talking inanimate object should be a staple in all Zelda games.
I agree with that. I think so. I wanted to mention that sometimes you can use an item to get around a different item requirement for some of the like optional islands. If you can kind of like use the Deku Leaf a little bit, like more than you're supposed to, you can get around certain obstacles. And Deku Leaf specifically really lets you kind of tinker with the puzzles a little bit. And they let you. I love it. It's great. It's a good choice. I don't
know. I didn't notice places where that was a deliberate choice. Maybe you were able to finagle something, but I don't know if it's deliberate.
I don't know. It's such an obvious thing to see and try. I'm sure that was play tested, and they saw it, and they just left it in.
Okay.
Sure, if they think about that, go ahead. It was great. I swung around some of the annoying golf puzzles and stuff. It was good. Environmental hints and signposting. That's a huge thing in Breath of the Wild. Not just telling you or something or giving you a very vague hint and letting you find it on your own. Making you feel like you discovered something. Huge in Breath of the Wild and very big here. Breath of the Wild obviously does it better, but I found it pretty good. Oh, dude. When I was a kid and I figured out the Cyclone guy, that you could knock him down and then talk to him.
Yeah.
That was a pivotal moment in me understanding what games could do. Like, I just...
All right.
Like, he's just there in the environment. You've seen him swirling around there laughing, doing his thing. And you finally, and I didn't even get hints as a kid. Obviously, there's a fish that gives you the hint. I didn't talk to any of the fish when I was a kid.
Really?
Yeah, I just kept going.
I loved the fish. Like, as a Zelda main character, I love the fish.
Great. I love him now. I talk to all of them. But, like, figuring out that you could fight him, and then that fighting him gave you a new Wind Waker thing that lets you teleport. Not only teleport, but down into a previously unreachable area to receive new items as a gift from the most creepy fairy goddess of all time.
Oh, she's so cool,
I love her so much. So much. But you know what I'm talking about? Like, that games could just hide these things in plain sight and draw their player in and trust them and just go, come on, engage with our world. We want you here. We want you to do this. And we have secrets for you. And then you get to go explore the lava, the lava thing and the ice little island. And it's just so rich. As a kid, I ate that up. And obviously now I knew what to do, so it wasn't as magical. But that moment will be with me forever.
That's what I'm talking about, dude. I think this might be the game I'm most excited to share. After playing it as an adult now, I mentioned it was like every 10 minutes, I'm like, oh, I can't wait to just lock my kid in a room.
Yeah, they would. I like saying that as well. But
to play Wind Waker, it's fine.
Yeah, I had no idea games could do something like that. I was, everything before that was very prescriptive, which is fine. Games should be prescriptive and in many ways, and I'm glad that that's a thing. But to be that open and to trust that the player will engage with it in that way is really special. And other games before this did it. I get that. But for me, it was a big deal, you know? So I'll always remember that. It's a well-designed moment. So, let's talk about Ocarina of Time.
Why?
Do we have to? No, we don't have to.
It's on your notes, dude. Let's talk about it.
So at the beginning of this game, I'm like, okay, aside from the sailing, is there really anything different between this game and Ocarina? Ocarina, you still have to traverse from area to area. You still are ending up, getting items to complete dungeons, items that can be used in the overworld as well. Like, it's still a Zelda game.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have the time mechanic from Majora's Mask. Like, what is separating this game from Ocarina? I would argue a lot.
Yes.
Quite a bit.
So, first thing that comes to mind right now, what separates it from Ocarina? I was not prepared for this part of the conversation. Rather, I did not prepare myself for this part of the conversation. Let me see how to word it. I know what I'm trying to say. But there is something... It's like the... We've been saying deliberate a lot, which I think might be an odd word to use for this game. But it is a deliberate choice to not be so forward with everything you have to do. Like, it just lets you go do stuff. Of course, you know what your next goal is, but unlike Ocarina of Time, which this game is not too far removed from, Ocarina feels like the things that you're allowed to do between point A and B and C are really just walk to point B. It does not feel like there's very much to do. And even if there is, it feels like there's only very specific exact things that you have to do it. You can do this at one point in the game, and that's about it. But here, it feels so big, even though your choices aren't much bigger. I don't think they are. I don't think the game is too much bigger than Ocarina of Time. Sure, it did come out several years later, so it's got that working for it. Just the tech of the GameCube, but I'm having a hard time putting that together.
I think for me, I think you're on the cusp of what I would say, and I thought about this for a while because I just jumped this on Tyler, but it's interconnectedness. Things feel so much less disparate. Like, when I'm in Ocarina of Time, it's like, okay, it's now time to be in the Gerudo Village, and we're going to do the Gerudo Village thing. Okay, now I'm going to walk around in this massive empty space.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, between point A and B, there's almost nothing to do.
Yeah, and
it seems
there is something to do, it is another A to B thing. Like, I'm not just going, hey, I wonder what that is. Like, I don't do that when I'm playing Ocarina. In fact, in Ocarina, I just have to look up what to do next because it's so obtuse sometimes. Like, some of the stupid stuff you have to do in the Zora area that just doesn't make sense. Like, what's the Jabu Jabu one where you gotta, like, give him a fish or something and there's like no signposting for it? Anyway,
I don't remember well enough.
For me, it's interconnectedness. The third pearl that you get is you go to another place that should be another temple, but it's not a temple. It's destroyed, and you have to go search the overworld for this great spirit. Like, the world feels so much more alive because of that. The fourth temple, the third temple uses your boat at the beginning, right? So you come into the temple of the gods, and you kind of sail around in your boat. Like, it pulls the world into that small space. It's like kind of like Gerudo Village. Gerudo Village is the best example from Ocarina that did this.
Dude, that's true of all that. That's true of every dungeon in this game, actually. Like, you've got the water that is flooding the lower floors of the temple. You have what should be these two ancient trees growing together.
Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely.
You've got the people live in the volcano. It's a place that is supposed to be inhabited, and the boss is killing what sort of gives a lot of this world life. And then with
That's a good point.
The other two, you have to use powers you get from places that have been signposted since the very beginning of the game. I think that's true of pretty much everything. Pretty much all the dungeons.
I also think the items are used much better here. We talked about the varied uses and stuff. And then,
which honestly, I'm not going to fault Ocarina of Time for that too much.
Of course, it's just an improvement.
It's an older sensibility of design.
Yep, it's just an improvement that comes with time.
I think it's fine.
The pacing is much better here.
Of course.
Even with the Triforce quest, which is the big pace breaker and one that I agree with, even with that, I still hate the pacing of Ocarina of Time. If I'm not in a dungeon, I'm not enjoying Ocarina of Time.
And even then,
I don't know. I like the first 3 dungeons quite a bit.
The Forest Temple's
amazing.
Pretty
a contender
awesome.
For the best Zelda dungeon.
It's pretty awesome. There's a lot to remember there.
Yeah.
It's weird, dude.
I like the volcano the volcano temple. I like all that stuff. I think it's a good It's like the
I remember the boss. I don't remember the dungeon very well.
It's really good.
I remember the water temple.
Oh.
No, I don't remember the water temple very well. That's been scrubbed from my memory. I remember being inside Jabu Jabu.
I don't like that temple. I don't like that dungeon, rather. Anyway.
I like that it exists.
Me too. I think it's fun in terms of the concept. I don't like playing it, though.
I would like to see it like a full remake. Because you just have normal platforms that have textures that look like fish guts on them.
Sure.
But trying to, make sense of that in with modern visual design, that would take some work. Sure. I would like to see someone try.
I will say, in terms, what I think in the simplest terms, what Wind Waker does so different from Ocarina of Time is it makes Hyrule Field wonderful. Hyrule Field becomes a place you want to wander and be in and think about.
Hyrule Field being the ocean?
The ocean in this case, right? Like what Hyrule Field is to Ocarina,
sure.
Right? You actually want to be there. And I would argue, if I recall correctly, that's something that Twilight Princess took some steps back on. Hyrule Field was not the big interconnected points again are not the reason to play the game.
No, I don't recall that being the case either.
It's better than Ocarina.
With some that's a dream I had. Never mind.
when you have
yeah, so when we were teenagers, my brother-in-law and I we thought we were both going to go to college. We were going to get like a game design degree and an animation degree. It was silly. We were dreaming. We were 15. But I probably still have it on Google Drive. Are we ready to open this?
Let's do it.
Number 2?
Please finish that and I'll introduce it when you're done.
Yeah, okay. I can't believe I just remembered this. What is happening? So we had this idea. We came up with a list of nearly 1,000 pop culture characters. Superheroes, video game characters, books, Harry Potter and stuff like that. Buffy, whatever. Had this big list and we whittled it down to 250, I think. And the idea was, much like Dragon Ball Z Fusion, which I'm playing now and I'm going to talk about next week. The universe just gets sucked into this portal and spit back out. And Hyrule Field was the connecting point. And to get to like Marvel version New York, you would cross the Rainbow Bridge from Thor, whatever. There's just so many things, and we were gonna make this little short series, like 3-minute episodes of just a bunch of crazy characters fighting.
I love that that's a part of your history.
But little the reason to watch would be the Easter eggs. And so I forget the people we were having fight. But these 2 superheroes or whatever were fighting on Hyrule Field, and one of them gets thrown down onto one of the ruins, and he crashes into the ruins. And for some reason, in this ruin in Hyrule Field is GLaDOS, hooked up to Desmond Miles and playing with the animals. It's silly. Why do we talk about Twilight Princess Hyrule Field? Damn it.
Well.
Anyway, that's all.
This is Bearded Seal.
Bearded Seal.
This is one
Thank
of
you
my
for sharing.
favorite beers in Austin. Yeah, it's a little bit old, I will say. Unfortunately, it's been sitting in my fridge for 4 days in a growler, so it's not as good as right out of the tap.
No, it's good though.
I still love it. Oh my gosh, it's very coffee forward.
Yes, sir.
But again, it's that dry stout.
Oh, it's
thin.
so smooth.
Yeah, it's so thin.
What's
it just
the
goes
ABV
down
on
to
this?
like 4
ABV.
point something.
Oh, really?
It's
super
very low. Yeah, so there's not a lot
this
of
is
body.
just I drink this all day basically.
Yeah, exactly. It's less than even a porter, and that's what dry Irish stouts are all about. And again, this is a little bit, it's been sitting in my fridge for a little while, right out of the tap. And if you can, they have it nitro, which is how Guinness is supposed to be served, right? Nitro. That's the way to drink this thing because it makes it even silkier, and it just I'm such a loser. I'm tearing up right now. I love
Don't
beer
you dare
so much.
Don't you dare apologize for that. I get teary-eyed literally just thinking about Persona 5.
I love Persona 5. We're going to talk about Persona 5 on our worst bosses list, actually.
Yes, good choice. Good
You can
choice.
probably think about which one I'm going to say.
Yes, sir.
So I have the dungeons listed here. We've talked a lot about them already. One thing I want to mention is the first dungeon in particular leverages a lot of common sense stuff. There's a little optional puzzle. If you light one of the sticks on fire, you can then throw it across the pit, light something else on fire, and swing across in a grapple hook. Great little touch. Engages the player's common sense. They use a lot of weight puzzles, like make you think, oh, this is a scale. I can use weight. Great little common sense touches. I love those in these kinds of games.
Really, I don't think it is the tutorial. We're now 3 hours into the game at this point. Because Forsaken Fortress is not a tutorial.
No, it is an environmental, atmospheric experience.
And there's nothing to even be remotely a tutorial. Oh, sword fighting does happen on the...
Sure.
There is a legitimate sword fighting
I hate
tutorial.
that mini game. I hate it. I hate it.
Which one?
Where you have to hit Orca,
Like 300 times?
Yeah.
Or do you mean the tutorial?
It's 1,000. That's the highest one, is 1,000. And he has this thing where every once in a while, he will very swiftly hit you back unless you've only done a 4-hit combo on him. So if you want to guarantee that you make it to those 1,000 hits without losing your 3 hits that you get, you pretty much have to just hit him 4 times and back off, 4 times, back off, 4 times, back off. It is one of the worst designed things I've ever played in my life. I wanted to rip my eyes out, shove them where my balls go, take my balls and put them in my eyes, and then run screaming into the garbage can.
I remember having those same feelings as a kid. I did not engage with it because I knew.
I did 500 so I could get the heart piece.
I did the first one, which I think is 200. Or no, it's 100.
Yep, 100.
I
Which
did
is
the
easy.
first one.
Then because you can actually try to parry and stuff, but there's every once in a while, if you're hitting him and trying to, bait a parry, he'll just hit you super fast. You suck, Orca. You are a sucky buttful. Okay?
I think you tried to say 2 words and
I like buttful better.
just some homunculi of the English language came out of your gaping maw.
My buttful, if you will.
So,
I need more
aside
beer.
from the actual, here is how you press the B button to swing the sword tutorial, this is really a great tutorial for the concept of a Zelda game. And they give that to you
one of the
3
best
hours
touches
into the game.
is there are these very thick boards that are blocking certain areas, and you see one of the enemies, and you try to hit him with your sword, it doesn't break them. You can burn them down, but fire's not always available. You see one of the enemies burst out of one by hitting it with his larger sword, and you've already learned you can pick those swords up. It's just doesn't even use words. This is pre 2010s Nintendo. When Nintendo felt the need to explain everything, which I have a respect for. actually.
I
in a way.
understand somebody has to do it.
I understand someone has to do it, and you've talked about this, but it does make playing that. Give us an option. Hey, I have literally played at least one game before. Can I please get in there? This is the A button. Press the A button. That's the B button. Nice try. No, just let me play the video game.
Yeah.
I need more beer.
Do you?
This is like got some
Oh.
We have some criticisms. And I have one that Tyler was like, what the heck are you talking about? So we're going to start with this one. This is the most minor criticism I think I've ever given on the podcast. So when you push a pressure plate down in this game, there is no differentiation between a pressure plate that will be timed and then release and a pressure plate that will remain permanently pressed after you step on it.
Okay.
There's no clicker. There's no anything. There's no lights. That's dumb. I would like if it had some differentiation so that I could know what kind of puzzle I'm engaging with instead of testing it out. That is not my biggest criticism. That's just the first one that I thought of. Tyler, how do you feel about that?
Sure. I actually didn't notice it.
That's because you are a normal person. We both talked about this. So the first time you enter Hyrule, right, the Tower of the Gods literally rises out of the ocean, and you go in and complete this massive dungeon, and you finally come back outside, and there's this little glowing circle, and you go down in your boat under the ocean into a bubbled Hyrule that has been drowned and somehow basically preserved. Everything's black and white. You have to go down underneath this statue to find the Master Sword, and you pull it out. The whole world comes back to life. And
It's amazing.
You can see the ocean
and there's
above you.
guards, there's enemies there too. They're just frozen. They are not statues. You can tell that they are not statues.
And they're the strongest
But like
enemies in the
everything
game.
else, they're suspended.
And when you pull the Master out, they all reactivate, but then you come swinging in and just obliterate them with the Master Sword. Feels great. Well, to get the Master Sword out, there is this puzzle where you have to just align 3 pieces of the Triforce. They're big stone blocks. You have to pull them into the form of the Triforce. Well, they're angled, and the puzzle itself, which you solve the second you look at it, takes probably 2 minutes to complete. I preach this till the day I die. You solving the puzzle should have the smallest amount of time between implementing that solution. That is what... Why do you think people love Tetris? You know what I mean? Like, just... Why? Why did you make that? Why did you make that? You should be ashamed.
It doesn't look...
Your children will look at you with disgust for the decision you made. I hate you. I hate you so much.
It does not
2 minutes.
look good in the environment, and it makes no sense.
And what does it say? I wrote it here. The quote that they... Oh, no, it's on my phone. There's a quote like... We must prevent the invasion of darkness. What, with this stone block puzzle to Triforce? You think Ganondorf couldn't go like, oh, that's obvious. I need to push these blocks into the form of Triforce. Like, oh, this is... Oh, what is this? Oh, these big stones? I don't understand. Stupid idiots.
It's very dumb. It doesn't look good in the environment. It doesn't make sense in the
I
environment.
hate you.
And it disrupts the flow of what you mentioned was a really great moment.
Mm-hmm. Literally every other moment there is just... I mean, it's the gravity they've been building up to. What is hidden under this ocean? What world was there before this? Is there any way we could ever have that world again? And if you look at Spirit Tracks, there is. What a cool little story they built with the 2DS games after this. Yes, there is hope. The hero saved the world and made it a better place. I'm tearing up again. Freaking dummy. Dude, it's Zelda, but like, I don't know.
It's fine. I do it all the time.
I love it.
I do
It's
it
so
every
good.
day. I'll just think of a dumb thing.
It's amazing. The signposting, while good, is not as good as Breath of the Wild, obviously. There are many times where they spell things out for you where I was like, come on, you should have let me figure that out myself. And they never say it explicitly, but they say too much. Like some of the fish sometimes. One of the things I think they did well was the ghost ship. the first time I saw the ghost
I
ship.
I didn't see it at all. I just used the map to find it.
I was just sailing and it showed up and I couldn't figure it out. I tried a bunch of times and finally, as you progress in the game, I found a way to engage with the ghost ship. It was really good. The Kraken showing up out of nowhere. The world feels so alive. There's just, again, mysteries in plain sight. Mm-hmm. That's the key to Breath of the Wild, and we see that here really well. There's a boss rush at the end of this game.
I don't think it's terrible.
It's not terrible, but it's boring. And I wrote here, you're not Mega Man. You're not Mega Man. People complain about Mega Man having a boss rush. I understand why you'd complain about that, but you're wrong. Because the reason it's so good is because you're supposed to stomp them. That's the point. You're supposed to have your full kit, every single boss's weakness, and you are supposed to just steamroll them. And it's part of the power progression of Mega Man. It works really well for those classic games. I would argue it works really well for the X games. The Zero games, you could argue one way or the other. I like them because I played those games a lot and I'm really good at them now, and I play them without any of the weaknesses, and I just try to beat the bosses anyway. So, but I could see it being a bad decision. I understand that.
Okay.
I will concede that. But all that to say, boss rushes are very hard to implement. There is one at the end of Devil May Cry 3 that I think is the reason that game is not one of my favorite games of all time. It soured my experience that much to have that boss rush at the end of the game. Yeah, I really hate them. And I think because I've been playing all these games so close to each other, it just hit different, and I didn't like it.
Yeah, it is not too much of a hindrance, really. It's like 5 minutes. So there are 4 bosses. 4 of the, what is there, 6 bosses in the game?
Yeah, 6. There's 6 dungeons, excluding the final one.
Okay, so 4 of the 6 bosses are here in this little boss rush. You go into a room, and there is one hallway.
A cool puzzle, typically. There's like a very complex, like combining a bunch of elements of the game puzzle. I solved the little lava one with the ropes in a really weird way with some ice arrows and stuff that I knew wasn't the right way. I ice arrowed in some bizarre ways to make that work.
Interesting. I just used the rope. I didn't do anything.
Yeah, that's what you're supposed to do. I kind of like went on the ground. I went on the bottom and ice arrowed my way over to the final platform.
Oh, you can ice arrow the
to make
lava.
the lava.
Duh.
See, dude, this is what I'm talking about.
I think that's what you're supposed to do, because what I did was I was like, I am not carrying these. I'm not carrying these water bottles. I'm not throwing one water bottle at a time. I didn't realize the ice arrows. Yeah, there is one very specific spot that you can crawl on the last rope and then use your leaf to get over. It's a very
that's
small
probably even
window.
more creative. Yeah, that's great.
It's really small.
That's what
I
swung, dropped, ice arrowed up. That might be what you're supposed to do, but it was
that
hard.
Sounds more reasonable because they've got the 2 geysers over there. They've got all the water bottles. I was like, I'm not doing that unless I have to. Which you don't. And then in the forest temple, there's literally no puzzle. You just go across the room. Mm-hmm. You don't do anything.
With the worst mechanic in the game, trying to aim the stupid Deku Leaf to hit those dumb little spinny things.
Well, you only have to do that once.
Yeah, but there's the second
to
one
get it
that's
to
really
come,
hard
come
to hit.
to you. But when you are on the platform, you just stand.
No.
You use the Deku
No,
Leaf
don't
in the
tell
opposite
me.
direction.
No, you don't.
You just use the Deku Leaf in the opposite direction.
That makes so much more sense. Yeah. I literally got it to where I hit.
It's rough because I started doing that as well in the first dungeon when you get it.
Tyler,
you just use it in the opposite direction.
Don't. Can you please tell me that's a lie?
It's not a lie.
No, Tyler, how did I not realize this? How did I go the whole game and aim so distantly and tweaking his little tiny cartoon body to aim it just right to hit that stupid thing? I need to go home.
This is your house, Zach.
Dang it.
The rooms are very boring. It's one thing that's barely even a puzzle. As I mentioned, those two, you don't do anything. I don't remember what the other two were. Then the boss is not even a full boss fight. You only fight half the boss, which is not to say you don't fight, both of its forms if there are two forms. But if there are 3 hits on each form, you'll only hit, 2 times on each or something.
Sure. But the problem with it is that the strategy remains the same. You have not gained any sort of increase that helps.
I would have really appreciated 4 full boss fights just remixing the old ones.
Sure. Yeah, I don't mind that. I believe Okami does that. I don't remember though.
One day.
It's so good. Hideki Kamiya, my boy.
Can't wait till I'm old.
I don't know why I did that. I hate myself.
I would hate you too.
But yeah, it makes the final dungeon kind of a bust. There's a great Phantom Ganon puzzle where when you kill the Phantom Ganon, his sword drops and you have to follow the hilt towards the way out. It's a great little fun little area. Okay, it's time. Let's talk about the Triforce puzzle. This is most people's contention with the game. So in the original game,
stop it. I need more beer.
You need more beer. Got you. Here you go, my friend. Pop.
Oh, we still have.
We got a bunch.
No, much more to this episode. I forgot.
Yeah.
Maybe I should. I think I will just wait because we have more to this episode.
He's gonna put it back away.
Yeah.
So the Triforce puzzle, right? So in the original game, after you've finished the 6 main dungeons, you have to find 8 Triforce charts, and get them translated by Tingle for 398 rupees each, and then you have to go and find them and do some little puzzle or combat challenge to retrieve them after you get the chart. Well, in this game, they made a change because it was a huge complaint for a lot of people because it really broke the pacing of the game. It was a lot of rupees. A lot of people just stopped the game there. And so what they did is you only have to get 3 charts translated, so 398 rupees for 3 charts, and the rest are just scattered throughout the world. And if you pay a certain amount of rupees, you get the Tingle chart that just shows you where all the things are. On the, like, shows you the area. It doesn't show you exactly what to do, but it shows you where it is on the map, where you can find it. It's overcompensation, to be sure, to give you literally where everything is found. I get that. Here's my problem. The issue was not the charts and the exploration and the cost. The issue was that you needed the end game items to achieve most of what was happening.
Mm-hmm.
If you could have found them distributed throughout the game, like let's say that 5 of the 8 pieces could be found after the second dungeon, and you're just naturally, as you're exploring, finding these pieces, that fixes the problem. It leaves the mystery, because what this does is the mystery and the gravity of finding the Triforce is just gone. It's just, there's none of it. You're just literally doing a fetch quest at this point. You could probably have lowered Tingle's cost or make it escalate. I think that could have been good, because if you didn't know it was coming, you might have spent a lot of your rupees, and now you have to go farm rupees. I get that too. There's a way you could have tweaked that.
I don't know how that would be the case. Dude, the rupee economy in this game.
Sure, but 398 is a lot. And remember, the wallet in the first game started smaller, and the original started much smaller.
That's right.
So in this game, your wallet starts at 500, I think.
That sounds right.
And you get up to like 5,000 pretty fast. So, but in the original game, it's pretty low, and you're finding rupees all the time, but you're not getting rupees because you have nothing to spend it on for the first like 2 dungeons. There's nothing
for the whole game, dude. I barely bought anything.
I did. I bought all the auction stuff. I bought all of the items from Beetle's special shop.
Yeah, I bought. Oh, I forgot about the special shop. I only went to it the first time. Like as soon as you get his special map.
Yeah,
I forgot about that. There were
lots of good
several
stuff
things more I could have.
A bottle.
All right.
A bottle.
Bottles
are great.
Dude, it's crazy how important bottles are.
Bottles are the best item in all of Zelda.
Yeah.
It's so good.
The fairy, when you catch a fairy, she's sad.
No, it's great. Great touch.
Yeah.
I think that it was an overcompensation because it has demystified finding the Triforce pieces into a fetch quest. And so, in my opinion, I think that I actually prefer the original game's method, because it leaves the mystery and the gravity. But I understand why for a modern audience this is better. But I do think by even just removing the tingle chart that shows you exactly where everything is and just leaving it as the 3 Triforce charts, and then maybe a little hint system that Tingle gives you or something like, oh, you might find it here, whatever.
That's what I was thinking. So if they were to change it completely, what you said is definitely the best route to take. Sorry, still got this.
No, you're good.
It's cold. Keeping it with the current structure. I don't mean the Super Tingle map, whatever it's called, but the current structure where it all happens at the end of the game. I think the hint system is sort of what I would get at, is maybe you could send one of the extra Tingle guys, whatever they are, I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good question.
To go find a chart. And then after that first one, which happens, let's say pretty quick, let's say it's one day, Tingle calls you on your little sending stone and says, hey, my guy's back, come get your map. After that, he also picked up a hint for another location.
That's a great idea.
But you send him out to go get another map, not the one you have a hint for. So maybe you can only send him out like 3 times because he's going to come back with not only a chart, but a hint for another chart, which you won't be able to send him out to get.
That's great.
I think something like that would
keep the structure throughout the game.
That would no.
You mean just to fix?
Yeah, keeping the end game structure, which they would have to change a lot of the game to do that. So I think that would probably be a better way than just giving you the whole thing, which I did use. I did use the chart after. I think I had 2, maybe 3, just that I got naturally. After that, I just used the chart.
Sure, I did it without the chart. Just to have more time than you. And if you explore everything, you'll find them. That's what happens. But unfortunately, you do have to have pretty much all the end game stuff.
There were most of them I already knew where they were.
Sure, yeah, I remembered some from my childhood. So that.
No, I just mean like I'd explored and I was like, oh, this is obviously not like a repeated puzzle or something.
Got it.
Like this is a unique spot. I should come back here.
I remembered 2 from my childhood, so that was one thing. Oh no, I lied. I did use the Tingle chart for the very last one. I forgot about the golden ship.
Golden ship?
Yeah, like the golden ship.
Yeah.
You have to, that I forgot about that one. But, yeah. And then we talked about sailing already. So that's really all my criticisms.
Did you go into that island that requires? I think you have to have all the items, but there are 4 switches on the island that each require a different item. And you've got to press all 4 of them in a certain amount of time to...
Yes.
What happens there? I forgot. I didn't do it.
I forgot.
Oh, okay.
So I don't remember that specific
extra
thing.
little dungeon or something, or just an item?
I don't remember that
all
specific. Right. I remember the puzzle.
So,
I don't
not
remember
very
that
important.
reward.
Then.
Yeah, so some final thoughts. Since I personally prefer Zelda for exploration, that's probably why this one beats out something like Majora's Mask for me. Just it's it's the wonder of this game really that sells it for me. Again, not as perfect as I remember, but still an absolute masterpiece. Mm-hmm. A lovely, incredible game, with some moments that will stay forever. Yeah, I really, really like this game, man.
It's great. I'm really happy I got to play it again. The structure of the podcast, which I just I sort of took for granted the extra time I would have. So I didn't give myself the full 3 weeks to play it. I think would have allowed me to appreciate the Triforce quest again. More than I currently do. I was happy to use the chart because I was ready to move on by that point. Aside from that, and just these sort of minor quibbles like the pressure plate, which actually I didn't notice. The boss rush I didn't mind it because it wasn't difficult.
Yeah, if
It
it
was
was difficult,
boring
it'd be
though.
way
It
worse.
was stupid. I really thought it was like the hallways you had to walk through were just dumb. The boss was dumb. Oh, and they do lock you just to the items you need to solve it. So that sort of makes it even easier. You can't even try to do anything else. They just like the fire boss, all of your items are removed from your item list. You only have the
Yeah.
hook.
Ugh. So dumb.
So yeah, it was a swing and a miss. It was great. I was so glad to revisit.
Yeah. It was long overdue.
And oh, dude, we didn't even mention the remaster. Obviously, we're playing the remaster.
Oh, yeah.
It's not a remake. It's a remaster. Quite possibly the best remaster.
It's very good. It looks fantastic.
We haven't played Twilight Princess yet, but this is so well preserved now. The original game looks great. This, however, just bumping up that bloom to more than your monitor can handle was a good choice.
Yeah.
It was a good choice.
It's gorgeous.
Oh my god. Dude,
I'm glad
it's
that we
amazing.
did it. I'm glad we did it.
Yeah, very happy to revisit that. Maybe, starting next year, I think that will be a good plan. We'll finally knock out Twilight Princess. Maybe by that time we'll have some kiddos, so they'll be in a room playing Wind Waker. We'll be in a room playing the adults game.
The edgy one.
Yeah.
Well,
You
yeah.
gotta watch that video.
I watched
You
it.
did.
It's so good. I like it.
That guy's good. I forget his name. I'm gonna link him
He's
in
great.
the description.
Great little history of Twilight Princess.
Yeah. Just some new YouTuber that came up in my feed. He's really great.
So is the main thing. We'll be right back with a feature.
Yeah, I'm gonna take a quick break, and then we're going to move into some other segments that we're gonna add in each of the episodes here. But we will be back. And we're back.
We are back.
So,
what have you been playing?
I have been playing something like I talked about in the earlier half of the episode. Something that I just didn't give myself enough time to. I sort of neglected the 3 weeks. I'm going to talk about it next week because I'm going to be revisiting a topic that I talked about in the middle of last year. I wanted to, with the year being capped by 2 Pokemon games, I wanted to explore the monster catching genre, which I've always considered myself a fan of, but not really dove into a lot. Played some Digimon games. I played the first Jade Cocoon as a kid. I played that one from Disney on the DS where you're digging out fossils and you have to blow the dust off into the microphone.
Oh, yes.
Played the hell out of that game, dude. I think there were 3 of those. But there are some major players that I have not hit, and the genre has a lot to offer, and things can get pretty weird. So next week, I'm going to talk about something I'm having a ton of fun with, Dragon Ball FighterZ, but I'm going to sort of revisit what I had talked about last year. In the episode, I sort of introduced this recurring segment on with the monster catching genre because I forgot my notes. Just last year, if you listen to our end of the year episode, was just a really tumultuous year for me. And I didn't have good notes. I didn't bring the notes that I did have, but I have sort of a more concise, collection of my thoughts here. And crumbs from a cookie stuck in my cold-ridden throat. So that's been difficult to deal with the past 10 minutes.
True tragedies all around.
True tragedies indeed. So if I cough, really, I do apologize. What I started with was Pokemon clones, which is sort of a subgenre in itself. there's a lot of different games. Dragon Ball Fusion is doing something different than pretty much any other game is doing. Kuni is doing something very different from other games. Jake-kun is doing something, even though I think the actual meat of the combat is a little more similar to Pokemon than other games. Just the whole package is very different. So there's a lot going on in the genre, but there is this sort of subgenre of Pokemon clones. So that's what I focused with first. I played. There's a lot out there. I could have played many more, but I chose three that I thought were, based on a couple reviews I watched. They were all doing something a little different from each other, but adjacent enough to Pokemon to sort of, meet the criteria. But I think there are 5 pillars that really make a Pokemon clone, that are necessary for a Pokemon clone to hold any sort of weight in the genre, to really get noticed. The first thing, of course, is you've got to have compelling monster design. At this point, Pokemon has a little over 1,000. There are some misses, but the majority of the Pokemon are pretty solid designs. And very likely you are not going to come out of the gate with 1,000 Pokemon to compete and have the grace of being able to have a few misses. You got to have that strong monster design. You need a large selection. Pokemon came out, 25, it's been over 25 years now. Came out 25 years ago, 150 by today's standards, that is too modest. You would have to have the most incredible monster designs. And I don't just mean like each individual monster is cool. The evolution forms would need to be compelling. Just every aspect, excuse me, sorry, would need to be carefully considered for 150 monsters to be even remotely acceptable. So you got to have a lot. You got to come out with 3, 4, 500 would be great, and they need to be good. Being a Pokemon game, it's going to be turn-based battles. Even Pokemon battles can be pretty boring with just the back and forth. Like if you go back and visit, the original Pokemon games, any of the first few generations, even up to 4, it's a little boring. There's a lot to like there, but the minute to minute of combat, it can be a little boring.
We found a witch may we burn her.
Well, you need to have compelling turn-based combat as the third pillar there. You need a clear progression system. Your mechanics need to make sense. How am I evolving this Pokemon? How is it learning moves? How can I teach it moves? How can I train my entire party? All of this stuff cannot be obtuse. You gotta make it clear. And finally, pillar 5, it needs to be inviting. I don't think a Dark Souls monster catcher would catch on. It might have every enemy from the Dark Souls franchise as a mon to catch. It might have clear progression, but that game would be gross to look at as a monster catcher. I think it needs to be inviting, and that also goes into the UI as well. The UI shouldn't be very obtuse. Just the whole package needs to sort of draw you in. These games aren't typically particularly difficult. Needs to sort of lull you into that. Lull might be the wrong word, but inviting, both in its visual aesthetics, the art design, and its UI. So I chose 3 games to play that are doing something that I want from Pokemon as a lifelong fan of Pokemon. I did stop for quite a while between Emerald and Sun and Moon, but I'd always paid attention to it, seen the new monsters. What are the new games doing? How are they received? I've always loved Pokemon my whole life. Came back with Sun and Moon hard, and I've played all the ones since then. Even when Pokemon, and oftentimes it's not. Even when it is not meeting sort of the standards I think most fans probably have for those pillars. It comes out with total duds. It's some of the systems are pretty lame, a little obtuse. It's boring. It's not very inviting. Like with Crystal, not Crystal. Goodness, the ones that just came out, Scarlet and Violet. Even when a Pokemon clone comes out that might be doing more of those things than a current Pokemon game is doing and be doing all of them better, Pokemon's always going to have one thing, and that is 25 plus years of Pikachu. I don't think you're going to beat that. After playing these three pretty heavy hitters in the genre, it seems like you'd be pretty hard pressed to win over hardcore Pokemon fans. So we have Nexomon. That's one of the three I played.
Do you have an anime and a theme song? Do you have the merchandising? No. You have an indie game.
Mm-hmm.
Which means you will get people like me to play it.
Yeah.
But you're not getting my wife to play it.
Really? I think she might enjoy some of these. Especially the last one I'll talk about.
I've been trying to get her to play them. But, it's a push, Like, it's a push.
Yeah.
And she's already a pretty big gamer. So,
Yeah, it's hard. Fans. It's hard to really penetrate that market other than just some niche gamers. The Pokemon clone is a niche subgenre. But I played Nexomon first. Nexomon is, on the surface, straight up a Pokemon clone. But it's doing a few things that I have been asking Pokemon to do. It is difficult. It is not an easy game. The choices you're making moment to moment while you're out there in the field, catching new, randomly generated monsters in the grass. The monsters aren't randomly generated. Actually, the design here for most of the monsters is really solid. And I think there's about close to 300, maybe close to 400. That sounds right. I think close to 400 monsters in Nexomon Extinction is the one I played. It's got a sort of a chibi anime feel, but when you get into the battle, you see the monsters. Really solid design across the board. I liked all of them that I saw. And it's difficult, dude. You're dying all the time if you're not really careful. Just a random battle in the grass 2 levels lower than you, you're still going to have a bit of a hard time with. It's interesting that they chose to go so difficult. And with this release in Nexomon Extinction, they added some things because it was too difficult, which I think is an awesome choice. I really wish Pokemon would do something like this. This is the best part of the game by far. Every monster has 4 slots that you can equip badges or crystals to. I forget what they call it at this point, but I think it's crystals. You can equip, you increase your speed, you increase your fire attacks, whatever, or XP share. So instead of XP share being on, there is no XP share in general. This was added in Nexomon Extinction. You can get levels 1, 2, and 3 of XP share. So it might be 5, 10, and 15, or maybe it's 10, 15, and 20, something like that, percent of the experience from the main Pokemon that was fighting shared. So, of course, the Pokemon that won the battle will get the 100%, but you get a percentage of that as well. Now, I might not want to train this Pokemon very much. I'm just trying to keep it on par, so I'll just give it that 5%. But if I have somehow found 3 level 3s, I can just dump those onto one new Pokemon. So if level 3 is 15%, let's say it is, that's going to be 45% of the experience if I put a bunch of crystals on that. And so you can distribute how you want XP share to work. I think that's a great idea. And then in the world, so items are hard to come by, money's hard to come by, the monsters are going to kill you. In the world, there are these flowers you can eat from, and they might take a few real world hours to come back, but you can go out and find one while you're in the world, and it'll fully heal your party. Those I think are great. Uh, Despite all of the things I really like about this game, it does almost nothing. Somehow, even with the included mechanics, it does nothing to set itself apart, which made me realize I think there's a sixth pillar to being a Pokemon clone, and you've got to be new to be interesting. Nexomon, unfortunately, was not doing enough to set itself apart. Monster Crown, however, totally different story. Monster Crown is mimicking the Game Boy Color aesthetic. It nails it, and it hits most of the bullet points, these pillars. It is new. The sort of story it's telling is a much more adult themed story. The monsters are indeed monsters in the world, even though they're animals that they use to till the land, to help build, just like in Pokemon. Um, the fuller grown monsters are nearly sentient beings with their own desires, and you have to sign contracts with them. That's how you catch monsters here. Or in Nexomon, I think you throw a card or something. No, it's a ball as well. Nexomon, I believe, is a ball as well. Here, you have to sign a monster contract. That's how the Pokeball is themed. It's still just a Pokeball. Works exactly the same. But, the monsters will just kill people. They'll become evil. You can become evil as you get further into the game based on choices you make. So it's new in that way. We're going back to the Game Boy color aesthetic, which I know that's already been done, but it's fresh again. It's telling a new story, a new kind of story. Unfortunately, it is quite obtuse with its progression. I wasn't able to get very far into it. However, though it's obtuse, nothing else is doing what Monster Crown is doing. There are something like 200 base monsters in the game. Some of them will evolve. Most of them don't, but some of them will evolve. All of them can be bred, though, and the offspring you get from that is based on every attribute of the monster's design. I don't just mean the stats. I mean the color, if this one's male, you're going to get this breakdown. You're going to get its color scheme 1 and 4. You're going to get its special stats. You're going to get its secret ability, and then with the so that might be the dominant parent with the recessive genes you're getting. You might get its physical stats. You're going to get the color scheme 2 and 3, and a couple other things. You're mixing all of these things. But then you can take that offspring and then mix it again. And somewhere around 200, maybe 300 monsters becomes over 1,200 unique monsters. Not because they're just mashing a bunch of random things together. There are 1,200 or so unique monsters which you get through this fusion game. But then on top of that, each one you get is going to be unique in that you're going to get a different color scheme. You're going to get a different breakdown. Going to get different special abilities, the kinds of attacks it can use. So there are 1,200 unique silhouettes to a monster. On top of that, the way the monster actually looks when you get it out there in the field is awesome. Unfortunately, it's very slow. It takes a long time to get into this, and it's not very inviting. Even though a lot of the Game Boy aesthetic works, a lot of it is pretty damn ugly, unfortunately. And it just technically it's rough around the edges as well. But if there's someone out there really looking for a deep and complex system to get into. I think the breeding system in this is awesome, and then on top of that, there's a fusion system. I can't I can't talk about that at all. I don't know what's going on, but you can then fuse monsters after
My
just
word.
breeding them. It's really it's nuts. It's pretty ambitious actually, for just a small indie team. And finally, of course, I played Temtem. I played just before the 1.0 release and getting the physical copy. I just played the zero point 0.9 or whatever it was. And I played each of these for about 4 to 5 hours, I believe it was. So I gave them a fair shake, and truly. I played Temtem. So Temtem is almost straight up a Pokemon clone. It's doing double battles exclusively, which is great. That's a fan favorite. Personally, I think I prefer single battles, but
Double all the way.
I see it. I definitely see it. I still think I prefer single, but if I gave it more of a shake, I mean, I can see what's good about double battles. Of course, there's more strategy. You can't argue that. There's way more strategy. So I don't know actually why I'm saying that, but I do.
don't either.
I do like single battles quite a bit. Anyway, you have double battles here. There's a few things that this game does right, and a few things this game does terribly wrong. First of all, it looks great. Almost all of the monsters are really solid. I wanted to play with pretty much everything I found. However, almost none of the monsters evolve. And there's not that many. I think there's less than 200. I could be wrong. There might be a little more, but I think there's less than 200 monsters. At least the time that I played it, just before 1.0. Less than 200 monsters. I would say maybe, and I'm being generous here, a third of them do evolve. And then even the starters you get, which of course you get 2 starters. There's one that everyone's gonna get. It's this little parrot thing. It's very cute. And then one of the 3 starters. They only evolve once, way later in the game. I think that's a terrible choice. That's why people collect monsters, is to see what you get next. I think that's a huge part of it. And they don't do that here. And it's not obtuse. It's just stupid. The way monsters level in this game, I think, is asinine. When you catch a monster, you need to, let's say, to evolve this monster, if you are lucky enough to get one that does evolve, it takes 12 levels to evolve it. Now, that is not to say at level 12 it evolves. If I catch, a Caterpie, let's just, use Pokemon as an example, at level 3 on Route 2, it needs 12 levels to evolve. That would mean level 15. No, if I catch a level 50 Caterpie, because that's the only place I found it, I killed it way back there. It's a rare monster, which you can find on these few different routes. I killed it the first time I saw it, so I find it again at level 50. I still need to level it up 12 times, which means it would now need to be 62 to evolve, which takes forever. So it's a set number. You need to train it for 12 levels to evolve it, after you catch it, regardless of where it is. I think that's a terrible idea. I think it's a pretty boring game. Outside of the battles, everything looks great, and they're kind of doing an MMO situation here, which I did appreciate. I engaged with those systems a little bit, did some random trainer battles. I didn't trade with anybody, but you see people running around the world just engaging in the game in the same way you are. They'll throw their monster out, and they're standing there in a random battle, in the grass. It's cool. I like that. It's doing all of that well. But the traversing the world is just, there was almost nothing to do for those first 3 areas or so. Maybe it was like 5 areas. The battles, though, they do get much better, because on top of being double battles, they also really focus on synergies. So if, let's say I have 2 poison monsters out, they're inherently going to boost each other. And then I might poison an enemy, but let's say I've got well, I don't know. I'm not going to pull something out of the air right now. Uh, it, aside from just the inherent matched typing bonus, if you have a different type, there are just attacks that will be improved if, one, they're poisoned. The enemy's poisoned. And also, if you have a poison enemy, so a poison ally. So you can just start building move sets based on the doubles team, which is why doubles is so fun. That's what you're doing. You're building two different move sets that balance off of each other. But the sort of adjacency that you get there, the adjacency bonuses are awesome. And there are actual adjacency bonuses, because if enemies are, so the field is sort of in a 2x2 grid. And so if the opponent in front of you is a particular type, that might affect you as well. And then there are some moves that, so let's say an attack attacks 3 times. Some of them, instead of attacking one enemy 3 times, will attack 3 in a row. So if I attack the first enemy there, it's going to attack 1, 2, and then come around to my ally and attack that one as well. So it's going to attack the entire thing. But maybe I have some sort of skill, and I actually don't know if this is there yet. I didn't get far enough. But maybe there's some sort of skill where you get a buff every time you get hit. So instead of attacking one of your enemies, you with that 3-hit attack, you attack your ally, so 1, and then you yourself are going to get those 2 hits. So you're going to like boost yourself by attacking yourself. It's you can do some interesting stuff there. It's a good system, but the leveling is asinine to me. I think it was a terrible decision, and just generally traversing the world is boring. And I don't think it's doing much new. So Temtem, while it has the most clout at this point, it is by far the biggest Pokemon clone that's ever been around. It's missing a lot. It doesn't have a large selection. So of the 6, it does have compelling monsters. It does not have a very large selection. It does have a clear progression system. It's just a stupid one. It is very inviting, but then it's not very new. Unfortunately, this one falls much shorter than the other two, despite their shortcomings. I think Temtem is not a great game. It's doing what it does well enough, but what it's doing is not good enough to... That's a weird way to put it. It is doing what it's trying to achieve and doing it pretty well. But what it is doing, I think its goals are sort of too high, trying to be something that can compete with Pokemon. It's just, it doesn't do it. And aside from that, as I mentioned before, Pokemon has 25 years on anybody else. 25 years of Pikachu's face is not a surmountable task. You can't beat Pokemon. I myself have asked for just about everything in some form that those 3 games are doing. And I got them from those games. They are doing them better than any recent Pokemon game. I would rather play the worst Pokemon game than play any of those. So I just think Pokemon clones are unfortunately too niche of a genre to really be super successful, and not something I will probably revisit. I am going to talk about Dragon Ball Z Fusion next week, though. That's going to be a good monster catcher. Pokemon clones are not good monster catchers, in my opinion. I have gone on long enough, Zach.
Gone on a while.
Talk about
I love it.
Action games.
I've been playing action games. I call them core action games. Games where action is the primary focus of the game, not a pillar of the game, but the primary focus of the game. This would exclude titles like Horizon Zero Dawn, which action is a component of the game, but the adventure component is just as large as the action itself. So I'm calling them core action games. Some people call them character action games.
Core action games. I like that. I don't mind character action.
Me neither, but it's such a contested word, and everybody has their own opinion on what goes in, what doesn't.
Does everybody, or does just that one guy?
These players, the people who play these games, seem very opinionated about it. So I think if we call it core action games, it's more helpful. Games where action is the primary pillar of design. And action goes back a long time. I've been writing a lot about this lately, been thinking about it a lot lately. Japanese developers, this is from Itchy Tasty. A book
Itchy
you got
Tasty?
Me. Yeah.
Oh,
a book you got me.
Yeah.
Which he says, in Japanese developers, action is just any game where action is the primary thing testing the player, not puzzle, not, it's just action. Ghosts and Goblins would be an action game, fighting games are action games. And I think that's a better thing. It's more helpful. So core action. And so I recently, between last cast and this one, finished Devil May Cry 4 and DMC Devil May Cry. I have completed Devil May Cry 1, Devil May Cry 3 before this. I dropped Devil May Cry 2 because I have a life and don't want to waste my time with that. I played it for about an hour. I could have given it more time, but I won't. So yeah, I've also played a few other action games. Really, I've played the 3 Ninja Gaiden games. So I've had a lot of experience. I just want to talk briefly about these games. Devil May Cry 4 has become one of my favorite action games.
Awesome.
It's incredible. It has so many problems, like many of my favorite games. These games are great because even in Devil May Cry 3, you replay the whole campaign as Virgil, and it's fine. They change nothing, but it doesn't matter because Virgil plays so fundamentally differently from Dante, and yet not just as deep, but nearly as deep. And Dante's the deepest action character ever made. That's pretty much a fact at this point. Devil May Cry 4 and 5 Dante there is nothing more deep, like a skill ceiling that high in a single player action game. There just isn't. And so because of that, it's not being lazy. Instead of investing in changing the campaign, they invested in making a character that is deeper than any other action game character will ever be.
How does that work in the context of the campaign?
They just sometimes they'll throw in fun cutscenes where it's kind of silly, but like Virgil will literally fight himself in Devil May Cry 3.
Oh, okay.
Like it's literally Virgil playing Dante's thing. But because he's so unique and plays so differently. So, for example, Dante's very fast. You're supposed to cycle through your weapons constantly to build that style meter. Virgil in Devil May Cry 4, for example, you increase the rate at which you do damage and the rate your style meter increases, the less you move. So you have a couple teleporting moves. So you're supposed to teleport and never run around, never reposition yourself by moving the analog stick. You're supposed to be that calm, reserved guy. You charge up a couple moves, wait till enemies right in front of you and pull them out. Halfway through, your combo, you might teleport to someone else and continue a combo somewhere else. He hits very slow, very wide. Dante is up close, fast, constantly moving. So there's a lot of depth there. It makes it to where going through the same campaign is not lazy.
And who's the new guy?
Nero. He's the new one for Devil May Cry 4. He was introduced in Devil May Cry 4. He is my personal favorite to play of the 3. He's fantastic. So his depth is he plays a lot more like Dante. He's supposed to move around and be pretty fast, but he has this rhythm thing where he has a charge on his sword that either increases the damage of the next move, or actually some moves change and become a more powerful multi-hit move. And those ones in particular boost your style meter like crazy. When you
How is all of this stuff communicated to the player? Do you really just have to play with it, discover it yourself?
Some of it is you've played the game since Devil May Cry 1.
Sure. Okay.
But some of it,
I guess less so Dante. Let's say with Virgil and
so with Nero, they communicate everything through the intro fight. They give you, like, the first level, they give you full text boxes, what the buttons do, how they work. There's a full menu of how your combos work, exactly how, which ones are stall combos, which ones are, mash combos, that kind of thing. But his charge system is pretty. It's not explained directly. It's kind of left for you to like. It tells you that it's a thing, but it doesn't push it on you right away. You kind of naturally pick it up. It does a good job because it's so much. It's so deep. You know what I mean? Like the action has so much to explore that it gives you the basics. And it's surprising how intuitive it is, especially for people who've played action games. Like, it really comes to you fast. For me, so what I like about Nero is you never sit there and just charge up your sword. It takes, a full second and a half or maybe 2 seconds to charge up your sword. And so you don't do that in the middle of combat. If every single move you do, though, even your charged moves, have a small window where when you press the charge button, it will charge at 1 meter. And you unlock an ability where an even smaller window during that window, if you press it just right, will give you a full charge. And so you are hitting, charging in the middle of your combo, pulling out something, doing an intentionally uncharged move. You get into a real rhythm. And you are racking up triple S combos like nobody's business and doing huge damage.
Now, do you have to unlock Nero or Dante?
No, he's the default. So here's the thing. This is why I brought up the repetitiveness, right? Like, so it's not repetitive to play the same game as Virgil or the same game as Dante. Because they are so unique, it literally changes everything about how you approach every combat encounter. It's good design. It's very good design, and it saves time on having to redo a whole campaign. You don't have to tailor it to them. All the enemies are built to be engaged by all of them in unique ways. Obviously, there are some little tiny missteps here or there, but it works great. Here's a problem. You play 2/3 of the campaign as Nero, and then you switch to Dante and run backwards through the campaign. The problem with this is you now don't have a short, succinct, perfectly metered out campaign as Nero, Dante, and Virgil. You now have to, if you want to play as Dante, go through half the campaign as Nero, then half the campaign as Dante. And you're not going to get the same encounters, and it's not going to work just right. It makes the back half feel very lazy because you're just playing as Dante backwards through what already happened to reach the ending that you've been playing towards, where the last few levels you play as Nero anyway. It's very weird. Now, that being said, Dante still plays drastically differently, and learning him and getting through that, I didn't notice at all that it was lazy. I'm sure, though, as Devil May Cry is meant to be replayed, I'm sure if I replayed it a few times, it would start to get a little old. And let me just play as Dante or just as Nero through this campaign.
Yeah.
Granted, though, that's made up for by the fact that Dante gets this awesome needle weapon where he's like hitting the enemy, but also setting these laser needles in place that he can either reposition or launch at any time that he wants to rack up this thing. It's awesome. And when he gets it, he shoots them into a massive heart on this demon totem that summons demons while quoting... He's not quoting anything. It sounds like he's quoting something. He's not. He's just making incredible amounts of sexual innuendo about us getting in bed together, and he blows up the demon pillar.
Dude,
makes up for everything.
This is a good game.
It's just a good game, dude. The bosses are so much better overall than Devil May Cry 3. They never quite hit the heights of fighting Virgil at the end in Devil May Cry 3, but the amount of duds in that game compared to every boss except one in this game is perfectly playable, engages with the systems. One actually I think is the best so far in the series. It actually uses what you've been learning very well. So, can't complain.
Okay.
So that's Devil May Cry 4. I love it. It has lots of problems, and I don't care, because the second you go into Battle Tower with your preferred character, they all fade away. You're just playing the combat.
So, hearing you talk about Devil May Cry 1 through 4, and these segments are probably not going to be as much of a discussion as, the full game discussion. But we talk so much about video games that some discussion will come out of our sort of what you've been playing thing. I'm curious. It sounds to me, so you've done your research on 5, right?
Not really.
Not really. Okay. Well, regardless, it sounds to me like rather than honing in what makes, and I'm not saying this is a bad thing at all, rather than honing in what makes Dante so great, because you've mentioned to me like he's the most complex,
By
easily the most complex, rather than honing it in and focusing on what makes him great, they just are constantly refining what they did before and adding more every
Yes,
time.
that seems to be their design
So,
philosophy.
like, everything you can do in Devil May Cry 1 is now perfect, and there's more things.
More characters. Dante can do more things. So, for example, in Devil May Cry 3, they introduced the style system. So you have 4 different styles.
Really? That was 3?
Yeah, so you have Trickster, which lets you kind of dodge around.
Oh, wait,
and
I'm
move
thinking
around.
of something else.
Yeah, so Trickster lets you move around. Oh, yeah, not the style meter.
That's what I meant. Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
I think it's called Styles.
Anyway.
Trickster kind of lets you dodge around. Royal Guard, which kind of lets you do this counter system, build up, defensive for a big burst attack. Gunmaster, and Swordmaster. And so those are the 4 styles that you get. Well, in Devil May Cry 3, you leveled each one up on its own, and they all have their own little special perks. In 4, they have all those, introduce more moves to all of them, and now let you switch actively between all of them in the middle of a combo.
Oh my goodness.
So you are now switching, like, you can build combos going from Trickster to move to one guy, switching to Gunsmith to do the one Gunsmith move, switching to Swordsmith so you can do your juggle move, like, in the middle, like, within the span of 2 seconds. You're just, like, doing all this stuff.
I want to watch some high-level...
High-level play is nuts.
High-level play, dude.
Yeah. And so that's why I like Nero, is the ceiling is lower. The entry point's about the same for all the characters. Virgil's a little higher, I think. Virgil's a little bit weird to get a handle on. But the ceiling is massive on Dante and a little lower on Virgil and Nero, but still so deep. And I like the stuff in Nero. But again, they just keep exactly what you said. They are iterating and adding, adding constantly. And it seems like Devil May Cry 5 is just the full
most
culmination
games
of that.
would strip away a few things to hone in on it.
Which I would argue is a good decision most of the time.
Most of the time. That's why I said it's not a bad thing. It sounds like it's really working.
Very unprecedented. Like, it's wild. It shouldn't work. Like, it should get bloated, but it's just not.
So you're gonna when we play 5, are you gonna play Nero or Dante?
So I don't know how the game's structured. I bet you it's Nero and Dante again, and you switch between them.
Okay.
I bet you that's what's gonna happen. If you pick, I'll play Nero. I really enjoy his combat.
It really sounds like I would enjoy Virgil most.
I think you would. It's a very, like, conscientious style of play. I enjoy him quite a bit. Virgil's fun. And if you get the special edition of 4 or 3, you can just start the campaign as Virgil. You don't have to beat the game or anything.
Nice.
So you can just play as Virgil all the time.
And 3, does the remastered trilogy have
It's special edition.
Special
for 3.
edition.
Yep.
Okay.
So
I probably won't. We're
Sure.
gonna play 5 for the cast. Hopefully in the next episode.
I think you should play 5 in DMC.
DMC, not 4.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think 5 is just gonna be better 4.
Sure.
That's my assumption.
Yeah.
And then I think you should play DMC specifically. Let's talk about that.
Yes,
So I played
let's.
DMC, and I think it's an excellent game. I think it's better than Devil May Cry 1, just because of the age thing that happened.
Sure.
I think Devil May Cry 1 is a more important game. I would argue Devil May Cry 1 is nearly as important as Super Mario 64. I think it's a very important video game. But it has not aged particularly great compared to the other games in the series. 3 has aged wonderfully.
It's just crazy. It is unparalleled how well Mario 64 has aged.
It's just, there's nothing like it.
There is, unless you're talking, never mind.
Okay.
I'll just forget that statement. But there is no other video game that's aged as well, I think.
I agree.
As Mario 64.
It's just so fun to play today. So DMC, obviously it's made by Ninja Theory. Yes, Ninja Theory. So the ones who made Senua's Sacrifice and all that stuff. A lot of people crap on this game. I understand why. It is not a Devil May Cry game. I don't care. I think it's an excellent action game. I think it plays better than any of the classic God of War games as an action game. And
So is that style of action game?
no, it plays more like Devil May Cry than God of War.
Okay.
It still has a style meter. You're still swapping between weapons pretty frequently. But what is interesting, so you're not swapping like, in the middle of a combo, you typically hit the trigger, you tap the trigger, and you'll switch to your next weapon, and you just kind of keep the combo going. In this game, you set your demon weapon and your angel weapon. You have 2 of each by the end of the game. 2 R2 or L2. And then you hold the trigger down, and it changes what your face buttons do.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how it works. Much simpler. It's much simpler. You have way fewer moves than you do in the...
You sure you don't want a little more?
I'm very sure. Thank you. Way fewer moves than in Devil May Cry 4 especially, or even 3. But it's very... it's still very fun. It's a really strong action combat system. Like, if this didn't have the word Devil May Cry on it, and it came out, it would be praised for its excellent action. Like, honestly, better than most games ever in terms of action. It's really fun to play. It does not outstay its welcome. And there's enough depth there to keep you engaged for multiple playthroughs. There's really a lot going on. And it's... The style what seemed to be one of the major criticisms. I think it's literally the best part of the game. It's what Ninja Theory does. Like, sure, it's dumb and over the top, but what are you going to say?
Fine.
That's
Lean
not
into
what...
it.
Yeah, that's not what... It's dumb in a different way than the normal Devil May Cry series, but who cares? Like, again, the whole intro, you were talking about Dante flying through the air naked, stuff randomly covering his groin. Incredible. Just him just saying F you to literally everything in the world. All of the best boss fight in the game is a pure spectacle boss fight.
Which one's that?
It's the newscaster guy.
Amazing.
It's incredible. It's a wonderful fight that I was fully engaged with the whole time. The game has its problems. I think that they do this weird color-coded enemy thing by the end to increase the difficulty, where certain enemies are going to be hit by angel or demon moves for real damage. It's dumb. I obviously played Special Edition, where it's actually at 60 frames per second now. It has a bunch of improvements. Those enemies are much easier to deal with.
That's crazy to me that it wasn't.
Yeah, that seems like one of the first things you should have done. Anyway, those enemies suck. They slow the pace of the game down. I understand. In fact, the enemy design is the weakest part of this game. It feels more scripted and puzzly than just a true action game where if you are just killing it, you will kill it. Now it's just like, oh, well, make sure you pull the shield away. Like, it stops the flow a lot. That'd be the weakest part of the game. But someone like you, who, isn't as interested in the skill ceiling aspect of these games, you would think that's just as good as anything else. And I would say the same. I think it hits a certain, not to ask a game to be as deep as Devil May Cry 4 and what I assume 5 is asking it to be the platinum standard, the very best of what the genre has to offer. Don't ask that. That's dumb. Respect this as a better action game than the God of War games. I'm sorry. But, in terms of the combat, God of War is a better experience overall. God of War 3 is a better experience overall. It just is. But God of War 2 even.
Really? God of War 2 also?
I think
you're starting to
the pacing,
unsell it.
The pacing, the adventure. Again, it's the whole package. Like, the scale and spectacle of God of War. Dude, the Colossus of Rhodes? Come on.
It's pretty good.
It's incredible. So, but as an action game, this beats it. I would say handily, honestly. There's a lot going on here.
Well, I don't play these kind of games, and our next episode, at least Nier Automata, we're going to try to fit in not Metal Gear Solid, but Devil May Cry 5, and if not, we're going to split them. So we are definitely playing the two games, but I am about to play what seems to be the peak of the genre.
Yeah.
I'm not interested in the genre as a whole. I've played the original, I've played all but the handheld God of War games, and I have seen enough of Devil May Cry 1 through 3. A friend from middle school and high school played them a lot. I've seen them. They've never really been for me. But I think it was Donkey's video on 5. I was like, dude,
It's time.
this looks like maybe peak video games.
Yeah, it seems to be like what video games are meant to be.
Yeah, this is their final form.
Okay, that's all I have to say about what I'm playing. I had a very big feature planned about the worst bosses. Like, okay, well, for each genre, like, what makes a bad boss? I found out that they're all the same.
Started to really boil itself down.
Yeah, there's one reason. I'm just gonna start. I'm gonna spoil it for y'all.
Do it.
I'm gonna tell you what makes a bad boss.
Being
Always
antithetical to the design of the game.
correct. Always testing things that are not conducive to the mechanics of the game, or / emphasizing the worst part of the mechanics of the game. The rare occasion I found that was the exception tends to be a difficulty spike. If there's a really huge random difficulty spike, that tends to also be
I think
a
there's
reason.
one thing that is not encapsulated by those first two statements. And that is when the game invites you to play in particular ways and the boss cannot be engaged with multiple ways to play the game.
I argue that the Ninja Gaiden series would be better without any bosses. None.
Interesting.
I think it would be a better game overall without bosses. So some of the examples I have here for the action genre. The goddess at the end of Ninja Gaiden 3 / Rager's Edge. Rinse and repeat. Very long battle. Does not engage anything that you've learned. It is a rinse and repeat stupid strategy. There's the dragon from the first Ninja Gaiden game. Rinse and repeat strategy. Has super high damage moves with trial and error to learn that have nothing to do with this tense, focused combat of the game. Just land a couple hits in when the dragon...
What do you think about
it
those?
literally pushes its head towards you and waits for you to hit it before it resumes its attack animations where you can't hit it.
That's pretty lame.
Pretty terrible. Gigadeath in Ninja Gaiden 2, my least favorite boss in the entire series. You have...
Gigadeath?
Name is Gigadeath. It has a one-hit kill move. It has a one-hit kill move. It can pretty much only be damaged by the bow and arrow. And so you're just running away, charging your arrow and shooting it, running away, charging your arrow, shooting it, running away, charging your arrow, shooting it.
Now, Ryu uses a huge bow and arrow,
Yeah, it's
right?
massive. It's like the size of him. It's huge.
That's cool.
It's awesome. But the bow is not the strongest part of the game. The tense gang fight enemies.
Yeah.
Like, and where you're basically almost always dead all the time. And having to pull out, really fast on the fly, knowing your moveset in and out to make the best decision for that given moment. It's awesome. It's so good. Don't put this giant worm boss that can insta-kill me in one hit in my stupid video game.
You know who did action bows really well? Hades.
That's my favorite weapon in the game.
Dude, really?
I think so, yeah. Specifically the Hera one where you can load
I think that's the first time I beat the game. It's one of my
Load your
least
shard.
favorites, actually.
where you can
but I
load the
think that's the
shard
first time I beat
into
it.
the bow. Oh, and you use Dionysus, just load the 3 of the mist bombs into the
Dude,
bow.
it's so cool.
It's awesome.
You would think a bow is antithetical to what the rest of the game's doing, which even the gun is
Yeah.
really approaching that, but you can do some pretty interesting things with.
It seems like I have a couple more Devil May Cry bosses on here for the worst bosses. Arkham, Dante from Devil May Cry 4, Agnes in Devil May Cry 4. They're all just it seems like what they do is either give them a massive health pool where they run away for a while, or they can just randomly block you when you're doing too much damage to them. Let me do too much damage to them. Like, let me use my combos that I've been mastering throughout this game on the boss, and then have them respond in an interesting way that challenges me to maybe switch up my combos, or I don't know, something like that. Be a good game designer. Sorry, I love you, Devil May Cry 4. Action RPGs. Kingdom Hearts 2. Demix. The guy with the water notes. You remember this?
I didn't play Kingdom Hearts 2.
That is a tragedy.
How many times have I told you this?
I just want it to be true so bad that I forget. You can basically only beat him by playing this dumb little minigame where you have to grab his notes and swing them around and destroy all the other notes on the field. None of you don't play the game. You don't play Kingdom Hearts 2. You're just doing that to beat him. And that is the most boring thing ever. And it has a very tight timer on harder difficulties that makes it have to be repeated constantly. It's terrible. Bubble Man in Mega Man Battle Network 3, who becomes a good boss once you have the tools to deal with him. So he basically hovers in the back row, has a one-hit shield that kind of regenerates pretty constantly, and he hides behind 2 rocks. So you have 3 lanes, right? And he's hiding behind 2 rocks. Later in the game, you can build a deck that can stomp him. At that point in the game when you first fight him, though, it becomes this kind of crapshoot where you're just having to build a really crappy deck that can just figure him out. It's early enough in the game you don't have the wide tool set you need to really just obliterate him.
You know, one of the things that turned me off to that game pretty significantly, first of all, is you and your brother. You're jackasses. You were calling me very mean names.
We were.
Because I couldn't progress. However,
it's not an easy game.
I had engaged with systems in the game where you can trade up. You can like pump a bunch of things that you're not using into a machine
the first time I played it too.
to get better things. Cool. I wasn't using these. I had 2 decks that, you know, one of them was refined, one of them was just for some additional utility. And what, you can have 3 decks? Is that right? 2. Okay.
2 into set 1.
I get to, I don't know, Chessman?
Kingman.
What's it? Kingman. Kingman's so hard.
Yeah, he requires
He requires
you to have
all of the cards I threw away.
Yeah. Yeah, it bones everybody the first time they play Mega Man. You're supposed to always keep 4 of every card of that code, because you never know when you need that code in that card. Sometimes you use a weaker card just because it has the code that lines up with your deck, you know? And yeah, just having those ready. I should have warned you. It's the lesson every first-time player of Mega Man Battle Network has to learn.
Yes.
At least 4 of every chip of every code. But that's okay.
4 of every chip of
that's
every
what
code.
I do. Some people just keep 2 or 1. I like to do that just until I have a pretty set deck near the latter half of the game. It's good though. I love that game.
When is the
April
remaster coming out? April.
I already pre-ordered it.
Did you pre-order me one?
I pre-ordered a Switch one and a PS4 one. You can afford your own. You're a big boy.
You're right.
Nick is the one I'm probably have to buy it for. Poison Ivy, Batman Arkham Asylum. I don't know why that's in the action RPG genre. It's supposed to be under action adventure. But that was a terrible boss fight. We talked about it on the cast. Poison Ivy is the worst.
Yes, I just wrote her down here.
Yeah.
Poison Ivy's stupid. Poison Ivy is this big spectacle. You can do so many interesting things with it. You do one thing. And by this time you have over half your kit, I think. You might even have almost all of your kit at this point. But you do one thing to beat her. You throw your bat ring.
And it takes a long time to finish her off.
Stupid.
That's another theme, like just bosses that take too long. So I have let's just go through some of the Dark Souls one. Bed of Chaos, Man-Eaters. Pick one from Elden Ring. Massive health pools, way too long on the delays of those attacks.
Oh my god, dude, the delays.
It's
nearly impossible to read half of the attacks in that game.
It should be intuitive. It should be not easy, but it should be intuitive. You know? Covetous Demon, Dark Souls 2. You know, just pick one. The big boy from Monster Hunter World, the massive lava guy. What's his name? Starts with a Z. I don't know. Whatever. He's dumb. What a waste of a boss. I hate him. He just takes too long. He has nothing to do with the hunting mechanics of the game. It's terrible. It's terrible. RPGs. Okamura from Persona 5. The CEO guy.
Yep, he's stupid.
Yep.
You literally just lower the difficulty and get through it.
Or if you're like me and you're stubborn, you just go grind for the right demons and the exact right demons and pray. Run in there and pray. I pity people who play it on a higher difficulty. The final bosses in Ni no Kuni. There are so many of them back to back that if you are not of a certain level that is much higher than the level you will probably be when you show up there, unless you've been grinding a lot, you're going to have to go back and grind a lot, because I think it's, let me see, 1, 2, 3 3 bosses back to back. You heal in between them, but your items go away, and your everything. And it was a long dungeon to get there. It's a long, difficult dungeon to get there, so you're already exhausted on stuff.
Dude.
Like they should have warned you before you went in. Like you should probably be like 20 levels higher than you are right now. That game's dumb. That's not true. I love that game, but
one I've got here. We did already talk about the ghost in Zelda in Wind Waker.
yeah, I have that.
That
here.
ghost boss is stupid, but and
Just have
I've
to
talked
chase him
about
around.
this. Yeah, he's stupid, dude. Well, I just use the bow and arrow, just constantly locking onto things.
I
and
just did
shooting them.
I finally figured out. I just did the charge up move that you get from Orca from giving him the 10 Knights crests. You just spin around super fast and hit almost all of them in one go.
I suppose I could have just used a spin attack instead.
Yeah,
Charging a
depends.
spin attack takes too long.
Yeah, it takes
but
a long time.
Spinning, you're aware that you can
Yeah,
just
you can
spin
just
the
spin the stick.
spin the stick. It's so useful.
Yeah.
Dude. So useful. But one that I always look back on, and I've played several games like this. I'm sure I've talked about several games on the cast that are like this. In Returnal, my best run was using the shotgun and the rot gland lobber, they call it. It's a little grenade launcher that just launches a little mushroom grenade. Who knows what exactly it is. I think it's a mushroom grenade, but it's a short range thing. It launches something. It's got a little arc, and then it explodes with some poison damage. It's great. Launch all 3 of
favorite weapon in the
those.
game.
Pull out your shotgun and use the sword. It's odd that I feel like I'm not typically that kind of player, but I found the best way for me to play was get in there as aggressive as possible and find whatever the failure point for this run is as quickly as possible. Because that's what was going to happen. I was going to fail over and over and over again. So playing those super aggressive strategies got me the best runs. And I finally make it to the 3rd boss with that build. Sword upgrades, the shotgun, and the rock gland lobber. And I am almost incapable of engaging with the boss.
Ranged only boss.
Ranged only boss.
It was a poor decision.
I was
Good boss.
furious.
If you are aware, that is a ranged only.
I was furious, dude.
It's a very cool spectacle, though.
You should never do that.
No, never.
You should never.
Just don't even give me the option.
Yeah.
Yeah.
God,
Yes.
dude, that's like that design is crazy to me.
It's the only
Like the
time
rest of the
only
game
time
is
it does
so
it.
tight.
Only time it does
How do people not see that?
it. Yeah, it's the only time.
Because it's not totally uncommon that like that sort of thing where a boss is just antithetical to one or multiple builds that are afforded to you as a player.
Hades does a good job of
That's-
avoiding that. Every build is
Dude,
useful.
that's crazy.
Because Hades is built around breaking the game, right? That's the way to do it when you do something like that. So I have here for action adventure, the imprisoned from Skyward Sword 3 times. Really? You fight him 3 times, and you just
Is that the pirate guy?
no. He's the big monster, and you have to like
Oh yeah.
hit his toes, and it's so
Fight his
repetitive.
toes.
It's just so dumb, and it gets more and more annoying to fight him, and the placement becomes important. The final Colossus in Shadow of the Colossus.
Yes, dude, that's rough.
It's just a slog. The spectacle dies by the time you reach the top.
Yeah, unfortunately, they really should have reined that in because the spectacle is awesome.
Yeah, it's great.
It's really incredible, but doing it is exhausting.
Yeah.
Which might be the point, but unfortunately,
yeah.
as slow and methodical as the game is, the fights are incredibly engaging.
It's very dynamic. Yeah, usually.
And then you get here, and I think they just swung a little too far.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Survival horror, Krauser from Resident Evil 4. He's way too aggressive for those controls. And that last form he has, I just use the rocket launcher on him every time. He can suck it. I hate that boss.
Are you gonna intentionally use something else in the remake? See if
It
he's
seems like it's going to be way different. The remake's going to be totally different.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I'm sure it'll be different. Miranda from Resident Evil 8, the final boss. I think she has way too much health. The difficulty spike is very dumb.
That's a stupid boss.
I had the
Just
Magnum.
dumb boss in general.
New Game Plus. I had the Magnum with 12 shots.
You played it twice?
Oh yeah, I love that game.
It's good.
New Game Plus Magnum, upgraded Magnum, fully all the way upgraded for damage. 12 shots hit her every time. She still wasn't dead.
Mm-hmm.
Are you kidding me? And then I unload my
it's
full
just a
shotgun.
stupid
It's a
thing.
terrible boss.
However, giant machine guy.
Oh, every other boss in that game
Tornado.
is brilliant. I love those. I
amazing.
love that game. Silent Hill, the cop lady from the first Silent Hill. Just run, point, shoot, pray. Really, just there's no strategy. Just hope that you win.
Oh my god.
Silent Hill 1 is
run,
rough.
point, shoot, pray.
Yeah, I wish Silent Hill 1 was getting the remake, not 2. 1 has so much to offer.
Yes, but even if it was better realized, I'm curious. I'm not making a statement with this question. I'm curious. Even if 1 was better realized, would 2, like let's say they were just on par with each other, which is better?
2. Definitely.
Okay. There you go.
Sure. I get it. 2 is playable now. 1 is not. You know what I'm saying?
Barely though. It's right on the precipice.
Sure. Stealth games. The skulls from Metal Gear Solid 5. Just one strategy in a game that is all about whatever you want to do. You just get the biggest gun and shoot them in the face. Ooh, bad look for my boy Metal Gear Solid 5. Liquid Snake from Metal Gear Solid 1.
I wouldn't know. I watched that one.
Long and repetitive. Controls make it difficult. Again, just pray. Pray that you get some good RNG on that one. Metroidvania. Ravenbeak from Metroid Dread. Just a huge difficulty spike. And a lot of repeat memorization crap. They're trying to go for spectacle when you already nailed it with Kraid. That Kraid fight is the best in the entire
Dude,
series.
that Kraid fight's crazy,
It's
dude.
Just the best.
And then there's
Kraid fight in the series.
there's alternate ways you can kill
Yeah,
him
and with
to get new
alternate
cutscenes.
Yeah, it's just
It's good, dude. That's so good.
so first
As
person
much
shooter.
as I dislike that game,
Yeah.
that Kraid
The
fight's
Kraid fight's
amazing.
I love that game. First person shooters, I have Doom 2 and Doom Eternal.
Okay.
Both the icon of sin. In Doom 2, the icon of sin is a JPEG on a wall in a game that's all about movement and shooting and positioning. It's a JPEG on a wall that you shoot.
First person shooters.
Doom Eternal, icon of sin, because you just get a lot of normal enemies and that boss is barely a thing you have to think about.
As much as I say it's not a first person shooter, I am going to say, just for the sake of this, most bosses, almost every boss from BioShock.
Yeah. Oh, I almost
They're
put that.
rough, dude.
They are not interesting.
I've
they're
been
not.
waiting for Ken Levine to come back for so long. Judas? Is it Judas?
Yeah.
Judith? Judas,
Judas.
I think. I think it's just going to be BioShock again.
I know. I hope it's not.
Oh, dude. It's going to be the
Platformers.
same thing.
Yeah,
Oh, I'm so skeptical.
Platformers. Super Mario 3D Land End World. You fight Boom Boom. He's literally a guy who just spins around. You have to jump on his head 3 times. It might as well be a normal enemy. Why are you making me fight this as though it's a boss? Sonic Heroes. Every time you fight another team. That game is not built to do that. And it is so obviously not built to do that why did you keep it in there? It feels like someone just stitched it together as a fan patch and then put it in the game. No. It's a part of the actual full game.
You know, as amazing as Mario 64 is, the Bomb King is just so unengaging.
Okay, but keep in mind, this was the first 3D platformer fight almost ever.
Yeah,
They're kind of teaching you what to do.
I suppose.
Engage in the 3D space, you know?
You can beat him in less than 30 seconds.
I get it. I like him. I think he's a good boss. All unwinnable boss fights. Name me an exception. I know there could be one. Name me an unwinnable boss fight that is worthwhile. I get it. I mean, especially in RPGs.
I'm going to ask you.
Like in an RPG where it's all about numbers. Oh, look, the boss beat you and you're going to beat him later. I know, because my numbers will go up. You're not interested in game.
Is the boss that sort of, I think it's the first boss in Sekiro interesting?
Yes, because you can beat him.
Oh, you can?
Yep. If you're good enough at the game, you can beat him.
Wow. Are you able to?
I almost beat him my second run. Yeah, I was really close. If you know the game, if you know Genichiro, you can beat him. It will still result in the story progressing, but it will be a little different. Like you will have successfully beaten him there. So that's cool.
Do you get to keep your arm, but you just add mechanics to it anyway?
You lose your arm. I forget what is different. There's something different, though, that happens. But yeah, he's a beatable boss. And in fact, that's the way it should be. If you want an unbeatable boss, make them nearly unbeatable. But then let those guys who are just masochists win. Let them win.
Yeah.
It's that's the way to do it.
Gotta be the way.
Yeah, I don't know. That's all I have. I was hoping this would be more engaging, but it's really very simple.
Yeah.
Don't make a boss unless it is challenging something particular in the kind of game that you're making. It's very simple.
I agree.
I think God of War is one of the big reasons we have had a negative impact in this. And not because the God of War did it bad, but God of War made spectacle such a big deal. And sometimes I think we just want that spectacle, that pace breaker of a boss. We don't always need that.
Yeah, you didn't mention... Did you mention any God of War bosses here?
No, I went through them. I think God of War 1 through 3 have an excellent boss roster. Dude, Hercules in God of War 3?
Would you call that a rogues gallery? Or is that only for comics?
It's fine to call it a rogues gallery, sure. But I'm done. It's a 3-hour cast. I'm going to go to bed.
It is late. I got a late start. I got here pretty late. But folks, that is the Unpatched Gaming Podcast. Welcome to 2023. I hope these first 2.5 weeks of your new year have been swell. I think ours have been. We're gearing up for some new things this year, not just for the cast, but for ourselves. We're very excited for what life has to offer. I hope you have something coming up for yourself as well.
Indeed.
Folks, thank you for joining us. I hope you join us next week for Nier Automata and hopefully Metal Gear Solid
Devil May Cry 5.
Devil May Cry 5. You see what you're doing it now? Like they're merging.
Yeah.
It's becoming your next Metal Gear Solid.
Not quite.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Metal Gear Solid is...
I know.
I dream about that.
Yes.
Very moist dreams. Don't forget to share what you love with who you love. All right, someone stop this so I can go see my wife.
Very moist. It's fucking 10.
It's 10 p.m.